No.
Wait, so everyone knows we're recording this.
Yeah. So behave.
Yeah.
Like the voice as well?
Behave. Yeah, audio, yeah.
You want to mute your mic, thingy?
I'm literally just hovering in case.
Yeah, just yell out if you got any questions and we'll all shut up. Do you work out Excel on the tablet, do you?
Yeah.
Surface count.
Yeah, good. I really like it. Just for taking notes and stuff. That's what I do.
Sorry.
Tippy tapping at home.
You taking outside much?
Yeah.
Got
Using
plans,
drawings and
everything.
stuff, yeah. So just printing them out. Yeah, works quite well. Steve hates his.
Yeah.
Just yours is go or
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you get the cheap one?
Yeah,
They're exactly the same.
at the bottom of the range, but the go, I don't know, just horrible, clunky. It's nifty, like in just marking up stuff with the pen, but it's just standard PC.
It's not a PC.
Same sort of
I know,
shit,
but
but
it's-
just clunky.
Yeah, it's not built for that.
I need to line the whole company up with these. Good luck finding a PowerPoint.
So if you did that same now, we make out ones. So you must pay out for that.
Yeah, that's right. This thing's well. You can steal mine if you need it anymore. Is it empty that? Oh, the power. Go find your laptop. Plugging it in. Is it live? I don't know, there's no plugs. That's,
No, there's something in there, isn't it?
I don't think so.
There's one here.
I don't know. It's not that urgent right now because I don't know how much is left in it.
Yeah.
How's the battery life in your laptop?
So my
I got the same one and it's alright.
Yeah, there's no way.
It's not too bad. I've had laptops before that are way worse. Nothing like a MacBook, but. Alright,
Let's do it.
yeah, all in. Umar's still got his setting up, but we'll just go through this. So I've just thrown this together as just a demo. So the purpose is more just to sort of take anyone that's got zero experience to just sort of understanding what's going on. And we've chosen Excel because it's something that everyone has and it's pretty, it's just accessible to everyone. It's something you use every day, especially in our industry. So this is just doing area and perimeters of a circle. So we've just put in here a diameter, and then we've got here, so I'll put a few different things just so we can play with different variable types, which we'll talk about variables soon, what they are. In here is just a data validation box, true or false, if we want it to calculate, and then perimeter or area, that's just by putting in a P or an A. And then you can see there's no formula in there. It actually, in the background, in the code, it collects this data, then it puts it into there, then it takes this one, assesses what we've put in, puts it into there, and so on. So here it's empty because we've got false. Here this would be showing the area of a circle with diameter of 1, here perimeter of a circle of diameter of 0.5, and so on. Down here there's also the case of when we don't put anything in, it'll just show 0. Alright, so you're all fired up. So I think probably to start with, most people don't have the developer tab up the top there, this one here. So you want to go into file. Some people might have it, some might not. I think it's in options or something in here. There you go, down the bottom, options. You're going to go to ribbon, customize ribbon. And then over here on the right side, you'll see a developer checkbox. So I think you scroll down there. Scroll down on that ribbon, I just don't. Just put 2 fingers down. Is it not been? Oh, there you go. So, yeah, go customize ribbon. And then developer over there. If you open it for you, yeah, just go OK. If you open it for your client console, you should be able to down there.
the green on, go open console, and then you can probably tell it to stop auto connecting. No?
Okay.
Yeah, audio client's not real great. Anyway, so everyone should have that now up the top. Anyone that doesn't? Yeah, cool. All right, so if you go into there, this is everything related to your code stuff. So you can get a button by going to insert here, say, and you can select a button. I might start from the beginning here so we're all on the same page. Yeah, you can add controls there and then just you connect them to your code and it'll do whatever you like. So we'll just start by setting up a table, say. So put your diameter over here. What was the next one? Calculate. So that'll be what we call a boolean, so true or false. Then sort of your calculation of your perimeter or area, whatever you want it to do, and then result to be this one. That's all. So pretty it up if you want. Give yourself some space and then just put in, say, 0.5 and then 1, and then grab those two and drag it down to however far you'd like to go. All you need to remember is what row that you do go to. So in my case here, I've gone to 15. So I need to remember 15 because we're going to set up a loop and it'll loop through each row. So we need to tell it what rows we're looping through, which, yeah, we'll come to see soon. Okay, so if we go up to here, we've got Visual Basic, and that takes you into the developer console. So if you grab that, yours won't look like that, it'll possibly look more like that. If you grab that and slam it on the wall over there, you can get the two up side by side. Give yourself as much space as you can in that console. So might make mine big for now. There's a bit going on, I guess. So you've got your workbooks. Terminology is pretty important too when we're talking about this. There's a difference between workbook and worksheet. So you have a workbook, which is the file itself, and then within that you've got your sheets on your Excel sheets. So sheet 1, say. So if we were to code in here, it would know that all the code we're doing is talking about events that we want to happen on sheet 1. If you do this workbook, then it's the whole workbook. Typically, not entirely sure about why. I think it's probably so you can pull it into other projects. You'd right click and go add a module or insert module. So this is where this is kind of like a global module to this workbook. So it's probably nifty because then if you made something in here that could be used in other projects, you can export that module and then you can drop it into another project or another workbook. Does that make sense? Yeah. So if you just,
it's like a sub project.
Yeah, it's just like it's like your own library of stuff. So I think not that I've got experience in software engineering industry, but they typically, like a company will have their own libraries. So they're it's a bunch of code that they can reuse. It's code that they use often that they've kept broad enough that they can reuse over again in different projects. So if you just make a module and then what's that?
Copy paste it into a sheet.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm sure there's probably like an export input. There you go, import export files. So you just pull your module out if you are doing it. For us, it doesn't really matter. I'm not sure if anyone will do it, but so yeah, if you just right click on one of these up here and go insert module, and then we're going to work from within that. So just double click on it, make sure you're in it. So to start with, we'll make a subroutine. So the subroutine is what we're doing is just giving the computer a bunch of instructions to follow. Really, that's all we're doing. And the subroutine is subroutines and functions. It depends what language you're in VBA or in Visual Basic, it's subs and functions. So the sub would be sort of like the procedure you want it to take. So you'll say, go do this function. So it'll go off and it'll do that function, it'll come back. Then it'll go to the next line and go, now do this, then do that. So it's kind of like, it's the routine, subroutine. It's got a good name, I guess. Makes sense. So if we go sub, and you can give it a name, so you could call it main, say. It's pretty typical practice. And if you hit enter, it'll put the parens at the end, and then it'll go to end sub. So probably wouldn't be a bad idea to just call stuff slightly differently to what I do, I guess, just so you see what's going on and you're not just, so I might call mine Uma.
Right.
So my subs call it Uma. Yeah. So call it whatever you like. We got someone else at the other end there, have we? Oh, mic's off again. So I'll go back over to here. The reason I've chose these things over here is because it hits different types of variables. So actually, if we just go back to the spreadsheet and you want to put into here a data validation. So if you go to data and then go to validation, and this is just how you make those drop-down boxes. So I'm sure many people are probably aware. You go to data validation there, it'll open this, and then we can just do list, and we can choose what we want to be in that list by putting stuff in here and separate it by comma. So I'm just going to put true, false. I could again put Uma in there, and you'd be an option then, Uma.
Cool.
So yeah, true, false, hit enter. You'll have a drop down box there now, and then you can just drag that handle down and you'll have true and false all the way down there. So you probably, yeah, it won't actually let you put anything in there. It doesn't predict either. Trying to fit. Alright, so maybe just, yeah, fill it out with true, maybe just switch a couple over to false. And then what we might do is, while we're here as well, just go and put a P or an A. Now things, you got to be really particular about everything you code, because it's not a human. If you put a lowercase p and you tell it to go and find an uppercase p, it's not going to go, it's the same thing to a computer that's completely different. So you be really particular with everything you do. It's probably reflects a lot in programmers' personalities, I think. Particular. So if we just put a P in there, drag it down, and then just go and put an A in a few of them, whichever ones you want. So what we want to happen is we want the code to go start. It'll start at row 2. It'll go, what's the diameter? Then it'll go, is calculate set to true or false. If it's false, ignore the rest and go to the next line. Now do the same thing. Diameter of 1 calculates true, so it wants to calculate and return a result over here, but it's going to check, do we have a P or an A for perimeter or area, and it'll spit out the perimeter or the area. So I think this touches on a lot of sort of tricks here. So you should come out with a bit of understanding of what's going on really. So sub UMA or sub main, whatever you call it, that's our main instruction for the code. You kind of think of it like head office, you know, and then you got your other offices off doing stuff or something like that. So we might go down here and we'll also put a function. Now functions are for returning a value. So you would give it value, send in some values for a function, just like math, and then it's going to return an output. So we'll call function calculate perimeter or whatever you want. Shorten it down if you want, but it's important to give variables, subs, functions meaningful names, not like UMA. That's not well, you're meaningful, but it's not a meaningful name in the code. If I gave this to someone else, maybe other than anyone in this room, they'll be like, sub UMA, what does that mean? If it's sub main, they know that's the head office of the code. So we can do function calculate perimeter. We'll leave inside the parentheses, you put your inputs, and then just on the end there, you can specify what it's returning. for now, we'll just leave them empty. We'll come back to it. Actually, you know what? We might do the functions first, because then we can see how that you can actually access the functions from within the sheet as well. So if we copy that and make another one, and sorry.
The Control-C, Control-V.
Yeah. So just highlight that and then just go Control-C, Control-V.
I didn't put space in perm.
Yes.
Calculate.
Yeah. So
Doesn't work.
if I put that, it's going to freak out. What's going on here? So that's, I don't know if you've seen sort of in code before, variables are often just one word, and then there's like uppercase as each word changes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called Pascal notation, I think.
Okay.
So if we just go here, we'll just put calculate area. I'll definitely touch on that when we start declaring some variables. Actually, you know what? We'll do it in here. So what's going to happen is when we call a function calculate area, we need to tell this function, just like in maths, what's the diameter, and then it's going to come back and say, well, this is the area. So it's a pretty simple little function. So to do that, we're going to send in the diameter as what we call a double. So we'll say D for diameter. You could call it diameter if you want, anything you like, just make it somewhat meaningful. Dia as double. So a double is, it's these over here, these are all doubles. So it's a number with a decimal point, really. You can also have decimals in coding. So I don't know if VBA has decimal. Yeah, I don't know. They might have another name for it. Decimals used for currency, really. So it's ridiculously accurate, 128-bit or something like that.
I reckon it's double.
It's about half, I think. So I think it's like 64 or something like that. And then yes, yeah. So like the variable has a capacity of 64 bits. So go to like something like 64 decimal places with significant figures. So it's already extremely accurate.
Yeah.
But if you imagine a bank dealing with currency, they want that shit to be tip top. So we don't need to worry about decimals, but I'm not even sure if you can do them in VBA. So we're going to say calculate the area, diameter is double, and we're going to pass in this. So we're not doing it here, we're in other places. So up here, later on we're going to say calculate area, diameter, and give it the diameter, and then it'll tell us what the result is. So you don't actually have to tell it. I'm not sure what the cases are in Visual Basic that you do need to tell it what it's returning. But in this case, it would be returning a double as well, because it's going to return an area, which is going to be a decimal, number with a decimal. You'd tell it that it's returning double. So you could leave that off, and I'm pretty sure it still works. So then we'll go in here. We'll write things out very set out, and then we'll look at how we can shorten it down. But I think if we sort of write it out the longer way, then you can see what the stages are for things. Just check if everyone's on the same page. So to start with, we'll declare a new variable. So you type in, to declare a variable, you type in dim.
Which tab that first?
Oh yeah, actually that's another good point. So it just makes it just readability, really. So if you just hit tab, you'll see as things when we use if statements and stuff like that, you'll see the structure. It just becomes really easy to read.
A really complex one that can show an example. Show how messy you can get.
Yeah. This will be in C#. This is probably a good one. This is the one I've been writing for our data for our programs. I'll just zoom out a bit on this. So these are all collapsed functions. This is a different language again. This is C#, so things will be a little different. This is a small little function. Say here. So this function is an event. So when a combo box that stores the software names, I'll show you. When it changes, this function triggers. which we call an event. So this is the one I've been doing for all our software. So we can see historical data and who's on what, and then we can send emails. So this has just been over the last few days, the data is collecting. So what happens is when we change one of these here, so that click, that's an event. So then if we go over here, this triggers. So as you go through, I've got, don't really worry too much about what's going on there, but as you see, we go into an if statement here, and you won't have these curly brackets in Visual Basic, but then we indent what's within the if statement. So you see starts at function level, comes in, goes in. There would be, I'd have deep somewhere, I'd have ones where they go down out to here, sort of the tabs, you know, it just keeps going deeper and deeper and deeper. So it just makes it really easy to
See how you got those dashed lines going down the left there? That sort of that sort of encompasses each function as together.
Yeah, so this here, that dotted line marks the start of this function.
Oh yeah.
And then that's the close of that function.
So by tabbing out, it sort of simulates that.
Yeah, so there's a few different, I guess, tools.
Is that just with C# or is that with all of them now? It does that.
I think if you can write in Visual Basic in here as well, and it probably does it in here. It's just because this isn't Visual Studio, another Microsoft product, that it's called an IDE, Integrated Development Environment, and it's just sort of all the things you'll need to build an application. So there's another language there, and that's called XAML. It's ugly as all hell, and that's how you create an interface, and then you can go and manipulate it with your C#, which is sort of runtime code.
Might be class 2.
Yeah, this was so doing this sort of stuff. This is kind of what I wanted to do, but I figured it's probably it's a bit full on. So if we just start with VBA and getting our way around spreadsheets, then if people can, we can look at doing something in Visual Studio. Anyhow, so we come down and we indent there. So go there, hit tab on that first one, and everyone after it will be just some nuance of VBA. So we're gonna.
Does it matter how many spaces, how many times enter you hit between lines, or is it just? You can
I should have showed you. I had that other one in Visual Studio. You can do an auto format, and it'll format everything properly.
Yeah.
So, pizza's arrived. Is it? Yeah. So if you do it in Visual Studio, you can hit a shortcut, and then it'll format the whole document, so it's all really nice and readable. In VBA, I don't think there's an auto format thing in here. If there is, it might be in here somewhere. You can have a look around, probably in edit and something like that. You can see the indents and outdents there. It's very it's not very nice, VBA, like the interface, because they've probably just made it to be really compact and fit into the program without being too crazy. So what we'll do is we'll declare a variable. I might just wait a sec because we got pizza here. Sorry, Newcastle.
There's so much pizza.
Oh, let it on. Yeah. We'll just set up here so we can get everyone to focus.
Is that one just a Toby search?
No, I think this is a little garlic.
There we go. Jono and Barry.
Are we going to do this?
Can you still hear me?
They don't want to. Why you hide it?
Who's trying?
Where's the paper?
Up in there.
Yeah. Do you want some?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I need Phil. Get the beer trolley out.
You probably don't need all of those open at once. No, we don't. We got pizza each.
Oh, is this another garlic? Just garlic one's a pizza.
Yeah. This is real programming now.
Yeah.
We just need lots of fizzy drink and pimples, and we can just nurture our pimples while we code.
It's a bit too early for programming, isn't it? I think.
Right.
That's about
We
it.
can probably learn some of that.
Yeah.
We do it from here.
That's a,
Send some this way.
are you a self-learner or?
Hey, we'll keep going. Do you want to keep going, or do you want to?
No, then.
Hey?
Are you a self-taught or?
Oh yeah. Pretty much YouTube and Stack Overflow.
Alright.
Lots of
That's
asking
pretty
dumb questions and getting abused on Stack Overflow for asking stupid questions.
What's it called? Stack on?
Stack Overflow.
Okay.
It's just a website where you'll find just about any question to programming in any language really that are the smart ones of certain types, and they'll just absolutely tear you to shreds if you ask something that's not well asked or something. So be careful the way you
You
ask.
start from school or?
Just in uni first year we did a Gen 1.002 course. It was just this sort of stuff, VBA, and then yeah, just enjoyed it, so kept going with it. Alright, we'll keep going, yeah?
Yeah, let's keep going.
Okay, I've just caught up. So it's yeah, was it as double, wasn't it? As double, I said. X.
Yeah, you've got Jono there, so he's a gun. Yeah, so Jono's another one to go to with any questions with this stuff. I saw him writing a massive one the other day. Okay, so we'll declare a new variable in here. We'll look at how we can actually do this function in one line later, but just to start and see how it's actually set out, we'll write it out a bit longer, so like 3 lines or something. So we'll to declare a variable, you type dim. I think it stands for dimension, and then what we're going to do is we're going to declare a variable called area, because that's what we're trying to work out within this function. So you can just call it area. So dimension area, and that's going to be a double. So we go as double, and it's obviously very similar to here, except in the function header you don't actually have to type in dim. In the body you do. So now it's got this empty variable here. That we now want to do something with diameter that we've passed in. So this is something that we can now reference inside the scope of this function. So the variable scope's another important thing. So within a function, it kind of helps in VBA that it breaks everything up into lines with this line. So you can probably think of that as the scope of your variable. So if we write area in here, if we try and access area from up here, it's not going to know what we're talking about because it's in a different office, I guess.
How'd you do that thing before to get rid of the screen?
Press picture with the people on it. So we've declared area, then we can just write out a math function now to calculate their area. So what is it, pi d on 4, pi d squared on 4. The problem, another annoying thing with VBA is that I don't think they don't have pi easily accessible. So you can access all the functions that a worksheet has. You can access them from in the code if you type in worksheet. So if you go worksheet functions maybe, and then hit dot. So now this is all those functions you would see.
Excel.
Yeah, from Excel. So you can just call that to get anything. So if you then do dot pi, you can see that it's got pi. So you could also just declare another double variable and type in 3.1415 whatever. So yeah, now you can do your pi. To do the power symbol, so you got to make sure you've got a space between it. If you don't have the spaces there, I think it'll have a freak out again. And then we can go on 4. So it's pretty, I think that was pretty sort of self-explanatory line of what's going on there. There you go, I've already done this wrong. So we're trying to assign this to area. So we're going to start with going area equals. So now you'll see if you write it in lowercase, then you'll see once you come off that line, it'll capitalize things. And that's a good way to know that it is reading. Again, if you're in Visual Studio, it points out errors to you very quickly and then how to fix them and all that sort of stuff. So it's a lot nicer than this.
Also, if you don't put any spaces in there, it automatically gives it spaces.
Yeah, I think it does. Except if you had them here, it won't. Yeah, it won't like that. So so if you do that, it should work. So now we've got the area variable that we've told it it's a double. Another one is integer. It's a famous one. That's just a single number with no decimal, so it's a whole number. 1, 2, 3, whatever.
Long is better.
Oh yeah. Long will get you out of trouble often, rather than integer. Integer you can only store up to 32,000 or something like that. And then if you try and put a number higher than that, you can, I don't know, you work out the math behind how computers work there of bits and stuff, but it's 32,000 something. If you try and put one more than that, then you'll get an overflow error. So that's probably something that everyone's heard of, probably the famous overflow error. And it just means that you've got a cup, say, and you fill it up with water. It can only hold so much. You go too much further, it just overflows, and it'll have a freak out. It won't work. So yeah, like Jono said, if you use, we'll be using it in a loop soon. Remind me when you see me declaring an integer to use long. It has caused me days of pain before. But yeah, it's definitely good practice to do a long. I don't know how many it will hold, but it's heaps. So now we've got areas being stored into a double here, and then all we do to return the value is we send area to this name. So if you just grab that name, or you can type it out, and you say calculate area equals area. So now by doing that, when we call this function from somewhere else, so say up here, you can't access area because it's in a different scope. But if we use calculate area, then that's how it gets the area. It assigns it to calculate area, which we've called up here because we're allowed to. And then we can store that into some variable up there. So this alone is a pretty nifty tool for anyone in Excel day to day, because if we go over to the sheet here, we should now be able to see calculate area. So that's our function there.
Hey Steve, can I suggest a slight change to your function? You can, where you said area equals worksheet function, blah, 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 and then below it you've got calculate area equals area.
Yep.
You could also just say calculate area equals worksheet function.
Yeah. I was going to get to that, but I was going to do it in 3 lines first so that everyone can see what's happening. So you can go calculate area, and then you can put in, just like you do in anything else Excel, it's going to ask you for, well, it doesn't actually ask for it, but it's got to take in a diameter, and it'll give us that. So probably if we go to 2, then we know that should be 3.14. Yeah. So that's a pretty cool way to make your own worksheet functions. You can just go into a module and create a function like that. Really nifty. But then, yeah, like Jono was saying, you can then go down here, and rather than do 3 lines, a much faster way to do all that would be go calculate area. And then we can just equal that. So rather than calculating that, storing into a variable here, and then assigning that to that, we can just grab that and put it right after. And that's just sort of much quicker way to do the same thing that we've just done here. But this shows you that, I guess, what's actually happening. So you can get rid of that, or you can keep that one. Let's keep that one, and we'll do the short way for perimeter. So then you've sort of seen the two different ways.
So you're saying you don't need the dim?
Yeah, so you can get rid of that altogether, because this here is already, I guess, a variable which you just assign straight to it. So then you can go up here, try and have a go at doing that one while I have some pizza. So try.
If you're mistakenly function calculate area as integer at the top because you wanted it to return an integer.
Yeah, it'll give you like a full number. It'll probably round it. That's what happens.
Like in this one, you had double at the top, but in the bottom you had integer.
So sorry, up here.
If you had double up there because you wanted a double.
Yep, and then you put integer here.
The area would always return an integer. It's like.
Yeah, possibly equals calculate area. I think. So it doesn't even. Sorry. If we go up to a bigger one. Yeah, so it's just rounded.
Double. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just.
So you lose all those extra digits.
Yeah, and if you turned on your decimal places, it's probably just going to be 0 zeros. Yeah. Whereas if you did it with a double.
As a general rule, just don't use integer.
Only time I'd really use it is just loops, because if you're looping through something, you go through by increments, and you're not going to use a double to do that. So you know that's a pretty certain one, but again, like Johnny said, use long, because if your loop goes for more than you expected, it'll screw you over. So
if you're doing one line,
yeah,
we've got PI as double. Would you just comment and then put the multiple variables in those top brackets?
Yeah, that's another trick. So what Tom's saying is if you've got heaps of variables that are all similar, you can just do that. Is that what you're saying, Tom?
I was saying even above, like when you're doing into one line in the top function.
Oh yeah, if you wanted a few inputs. Yeah, I think
like if you're doing it in one line rather than doing the three.
Yeah, I think you got to go in like that. So you then ask for whatever else you wanted to come in, and you can make it anything as well. So that would be another. Now radius, we could access radius from within here as well. But we also have to pass that into the function when we call it from anyway. So if we go back up to calculate perimeter and try and do this one in one line, everyone sort of had a go at it. Everyone's just digging in the pizza.
Does it work?
That's it.
Calculate perimeter. Try that one. Alright, the second function.
So you do all these functions, and then you want to save them to reuse them on every spreadsheet you open.
Yeah, so that's what we were saying. You might have just joined in after the module up there.
Mm-hmm.
So see how you got module. I think the reason, Jono might have an answer to that one. I'm pretty sure the reason is it's just kind of like your own library, that if you can reuse it, you can just export that module and then import that module into a new workbook. Again, terminology, workbook, worksheets down here. You'll see that soon, important. So if you made a new workbook, then you can just import a module, assuming that it's going to do the same functions that you've previously made. Just reusing code, very nifty to do it if you can. Save a lot of time. Alright, so if we go here and we do the one-liner, so we're just going to equate the function and just go equals, and then because we're doing perimeter 2 pi r or pi d, so you get worksheet function dot pi, and it'll show up times our input that we haven't declared yet. Same thing. We'll make it. Let's just make it d in this one, just so you can see difference. D as double. D for diameter, not D for double. And then just go times that. So obviously, if you can write it a lot shorter, do it. It's just easy to read and saves time. In this case, probably tiny little fractions of milliseconds. But so now we could go back up. Or yeah, these two are now accessible from your sheet as a function, and you can just write them into wherever you like, into any cell. So if we go back up to main now, give yourself some space. This is where all the cool stuff will happen.
What's the second on the calculate area? You've got total is double, as double. What is second on?
Oh yeah, so it's I'm not sure what the cases are. Sometimes I think it will ask you to specify that as the return type. So that's what you're sending back out. So when we go, no, so it will work without it. In this case, I'm not.
Sometimes you need it.
Yeah, if it has a tantrum, then if it has a tantrum, then you know that that might be the case. So I think it's probably just good practice, seeing as I don't have the answer to that. Good practice just to tell it.
Yeah, it's good to define all your variables for debugging. Actually, Steve, I'm going to go soon. So just one other suggestion. Yeah, option explicit. There we go.
I thought that was coming. You go up here and you type in option explicit, and it'll make those errors even more fussy. We might leave it off for now. The way we can do that as well is comment out, but you'll see soon. Sorry, leave it on, because what we won't do is when we declare our loop, we won't declare the looping variable, which would work if you had option explicit off. But when you turn it on, it'll be like, what is this number that you're trying to loop? Because it just wants you to. It is good practice, and it'll just stop things from going wrong where you're not going to pick up on it, and especially when you're beginning, the last thing you need is things going wrong that you don't understand. So.
Change that to calculate perimeter.
Yeah, see the syntax you got?
That doesn't.
It's different to that.
You calculate
Perimeter,
that
calculate
needs to be a number. Maybe it's a string.
So I mean, you're going to be really fussy.
Should be fine.
Even it's got to be.
If you go off that line, it probably would have capitalized that for you. But
That's part of it. It's got to be corrected.
Oh.
So yeah, after a function,
Can you just reiterate why did you specify you said D as double inside of parentheses and then outside again as double?
yeah, so when you declare a function, or even if you make a sub, if you put something in the
So you're saying the argument passed to the function is a double as well as the return function variable is also a double?
Yeah. Okay. So inside parens are your arguments, and that's the inputs to the function, and then what's outside there is the return type.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're returning a double as well. It's kind of not a great example because it's just the same variable types there, but yeah. Alright, so what you can do is you can write comments in your code which don't get executed at runtime, but it helps you clean up what you're doing, and especially if someone else has to go and work on that code or use that code, you can just write in English next to each thing what's happening. Wrong language, use that. So if you use an apostrophe, then everything that follows that apostrophe on that line will become green, and then it won't actually execute. Yeah, it won't do anything. So we can just write Umar Khan has great hair. Sometimes. If we're clicked inside here and we press run, it's going to run this sub. So if we do that, it's just nothing's going to happen. Another nifty thing before we start writing out as well is this immediate window down here, it's called. So if you, I think it's in debug. Where is it? View, immediate window. There, Control G. So if you hit that, you'll get a little window pop up down the bottom. Everyone's got it. So that's really nifty for debugging as well. You can, if you type in debug.print there, then parentheses, and whatever you put in this parentheses, it'll print to that window when it goes past that. So if I wanted to put in English letters, characters, you'd use what's called a string. It's another variable type. So doubles and integers are numbers, which means that if you have doubles and integers, you could perform sort of mathematical operations on them. So if you've declared a string, it's kind of just English. So you might even, to show that it's a string, you put it in quotations. So Umar looks good today. So if we run that now, it's going to print that down here. So it's a really nifty way to see what the value is of something. We could go here and we could say dim int as integer, right? And then we could say, oh, it's probably a reserved keyword, maybe. Yeah. So if we go dim I as integer, which is a very common way to declare an integer for a loop, then we could then say I is equal to 5, say. We could put that in here, we could say I, and now when we run that, it'll print out 5. So it's really, really handy to be able to just have it spit out values. Another way to do it is, there's a couple of other windows, local windows. If you are in here and you, has everyone got this debug toolbar up here?
No.
Oh, yeah. Actually, sorry. So up here, if you just right click on that area, you'll see debug and just tick that. You'll get a little window and you should be able to just drag it up and drop it onto that toolbar. So that's got all the little debugging tools in it. Just things to help you work out where your errors are coming from or follow what the code is doing. Because when you run this stuff, you could write something that, say Jono was writing shear wall calc spreadsheet the other day. You imagine how long it takes an engineer to go through and do that with the new code and all these wall calcs. It does it in a second. So how do you follow through what it's thinking? So that's where your locals window is really, really handy. If you, within here again, so if we were down here, right, and we had our mouse down here and we hit run, it's going to ask you what macro you want to run, because you can't just run function because you're not giving it any inputs. But main we can, so we'd then just hit run. So either way, if you went up here and you can go to this one here, step into. So this goes, I think this goes line by line. You might then even do you step over. So you can see the yellow marker is where the code's currently at. So rather than just running through and ending, you can go step by step. So as we've started it, it's gone, these are all the variables that are in this block of code, this subroutine. So we only have I, but you can see it has a value of 0 and its type. So it's an integer.
The locals window.
Oh, sorry, so that'll be one of these ones here. Locals window there. So everyone's got that up. So if you just click, somewhere in your sub, if you've written out this bit of code here, then just do the step into. And then if you go again now, so when it's on this line, it hasn't actually run that line yet. That's sort of next in the queue. So if you go again, you'll see down the bottom here, this will attain a value. So it's now been assigned the value of 5, but we still haven't printed out. It's another gross thing about VBA is you have to highlight and delete what's in there. There's no clear button. And then if you go step into again, it'll print out the value of I. So this is when you've got heaps of variables, this is pretty awesome. It's just a nice big table of all your variables, and you can see at what stage what they're getting assigned. But if you had a really complex one, it could be too overwhelming. So then you can go to your watch window there with the glasses on it, and there's another window. Get rid of the locals one, and then you can just right click onto a variable, I think, and go add watch, and then it'll ask all this. Just press yes, and now it's in there. So because we're at the end of the function, we haven't actually finished the function or the sub, we still have value of 5. So I think if we go over again, out of context means nothing's running. So do that same thing again, and then it would just be that one. So it's not going to show everything in here, only the things you tell it to. So yeah, it's just a nifty little thing. I might leave the locals window on, so as we declare stuff, you can see what's going on.
So Steve, with that watch, when you step out of your main that you're working in, like let's say you got a couple of them.
Yeah.
Will that then clear your watch, or will it hold it until the whole submain's been done? Or do you set that yourself?
Say that again.
So like, let's say you're trying to find I, like you got a heap of variables.
Yeah.
And so you're setting it through your submain, and it's going to other mains all through. Will that watch stay? Because you know it says out of context when it finishes.
Yep.
Will that stay there the whole time?
So this will only, what's in there? Oh yeah. So I think if you went into a different sub, I think it would probably still. So if we had cable 3, so I think if we ran this one, it's probably not gonna. It'll just remain out of context. Yeah. So it still knows that we want to watch this one, but it's not gonna do anything because
It's only what you're actually physically running.
Yeah.
That little sub module.
Yeah. So like I was saying, it's in a different office. So this is head office here, and then this is all the other offices. You can't really see what's going on.
You declare instead of k as a variable, you declare I in that subroutine. Are you still watching I of the main subroutine? Would it pick up the I of the
No. So
subroutine?
see here, we told it the context sub main.
Okay.
So yeah, so you could have two I's, a different one in different subs, but you've told it this is the I that you want to watch, so it won't overlap. Alright, so another thing is with strings, which just represents. Sorry, wrong language. Dim name say as string. So that's saying we've got this variable called name, and it's going to hold a string of letters. So it's kind of the most flexible in that you can just give it anything you want. But if you gave it a number, say, and you wanted to do something with that number, say you tried to go some new dim result as double, and then we wanted to say result equals 7 times 7. So if we tried to go result equals name times name, it's not going to work because it's a string. Is that?
It doesn't recognize it as a number.
Yeah, it's not. You've told it that it's just a bunch of sort of English characters, say, or not necessarily English, anything. But if you, well, actually, it might be smart enough in this case to. Yeah, no. So I'm surprised it didn't actually throw an error there. Yeah, actually, let's see if it. Yeah, you can. So there is ways to convert the numbers. You just got to be sure that it will convert. Because if you try to convert something that could be edited by a user, say, and they've put, you think that it's a number, but users do weird stuff. So like you might find that they've put in a letter behind it, and then you try and convert that, it'll crash because it's going to go. I can't convert that. So you put it into like some sort of safe way of converting it. If it can convert, and do this. If it can't, then just give this value, something like that. So if we run that, Okay, so it is smart enough in this case to realise that. If we said, or maybe it's because I've did it like that, it still gets pretty smart. There you go, type mismatch. So that's because it's trying to, it's trying to do mathematics with letters.
Why does it use the debug button then?
Go again. Oh yeah, it'll just highlight the problem line.
Just handy.
Yeah, so there you go, some more stuff in your locals.
Another good thing to do is just Google what that error says.
Yeah, and that's when you'll end up on Stack Overflow and getting abused by really smart people. So, all right, so we can get rid of all that, and we'll start writing out the stuff for the worksheet. If anyone has written any of that.
Is there a quick way to add the apostrophes before underneath, like every line?
Yeah, there is. You can.
Lines of the apostrophe.
Yep. Yeah.
You want to save it for later, you know,
Actually, I'm not sure if VBA does that, but pretty much any language, you can just comment all. Yeah, it doesn't look like they'd usually fall under the edit tab.
What are you trying to do, Steve?
Just comment all out.
Yeah, you can if you've got to display the edit menu. So right click on off to the right of that. Edit.
There you go.
It's
He's getting rid of all that stuff.
that one. Yeah.
There you go. So if you got that edit menu, it's Jono saving the day, and then you can go hit that one, and it'll comment out every line, and then you got uncomment there. So if that's
it's not working.
yeah.
Come back to it.
Yeah, so it's really handy, I guess. If I find myself using it all the time, you write out blocks trying to do something one way, and then you go, oh, that doesn't work, but I don't want to delete it in case I come back to the side to use it. Highlight it all, comment it all, and then start writing the next thing under it, and then just see which one I end up using, and then just delete the other one. Yeah, very nifty. So if we use the commenting here, we're going to structure out what we want to happen on the sheet. So first thing we'll do is we'll probably declare a reference to the workbook, which is, you don't have to do it. I think it's a lot nicer, especially if you've got to access your worksheet a lot. Reference to worksheet. Then we'll go into collect, we'll go for each row, so loop for each row. And then we'll go get diameter for each for particular row. Then we can go get the bool, which is another variable type, boolean, true or false. Often shortened to bool. I think in VBA it wants the full word boolean. Get boolean for calculate or not. Then we're going to get the string in the worksheet. So that's why we used P's and A's in there, because that's a string, so it's just another variable type for us to work with. You'd probably do the same thing as you did with the true and false and make a list, but even then you're still comparing strings. So get string for prim or area, and then calculate results, and then write to worksheet. So these comments might, or likely will get moved around a bit as we create things, but we've now put English there as to the process we're going to take to get to the end. So anyone comes along, they can go, oh, I want to look at the part where you're reading, whether it's perimeter or area. Much easier to just go and read a bit of English.
It's always good to do this as well before you even get stuck into coding. Just sit down with a bit of paper and figure out what you actually want to do and step it out.
makes it a hell of a lot easier once you actually get in here and you've got to think about what you're actually typing.
I couldn't agree more. There's something, especially in first year engineering. I remember our teacher Majid was trying to drill this into us. Write your English first, and then go through and do it. And I've probably only started getting pretty thorough with commenting over the last 2 years, I guess. And I wish I was doing it earlier, because if you've got a bit of a plan to make something, and then you just go out and write it out in English, so many times I'll do that, and then I'll go, well, like I would have got so far here, and then realise that was a really bad way to do it. It just makes you think out the workflow, I guess, of the code. So has everyone got some nice bit of English in there? Alright, so first thing we're going to do is, because we're in a module, like I was saying earlier, if you're in sheet 1, it would know that you're talking to sheet 1. Because we're in a module, we need to let it know that we're talking to the sheet, and which sheet we're talking to, which workbook we're talking to, and which sheet we're talking to. So you could talk to another workbook, like this one over here, my demo one that I made. You could talk to that workbook from this workbook. So to start with, we're going to declare a workbook. So we'll go dim, and we'll call it WB for workbook. And you'll see why this is a lot nicer to do soon. So dim workbook as workbook, and it'll give you the option to type in workbook. Make sure you do workbook, not workbooks, because that'll no doubt be an array of workbooks, which is not a variable type that we'll talk about today. Might be a lesson 2 one. So we've declared a variable of type workbook. So it knows that it's expecting WB to be equal to something that resembles the workbook. So now to set the workbook to the one you want to talk about, you got to type in set. This isn't typical for most variables. I'm not sure why it wants you to do this. Rather than just say workbook equals, you got to say set workbook equals, and then we can say this workbook, and it knows that we're talking about the workbook that it's a child of, if that makes sense. So now we've got the workbook, we can then do the same thing for the worksheet. So we might have another sheet here, say sheet 2 there, and we need to tell it which sheet we're talking to. This is often in VBA, you can select the cells that it's, or you can say, you can get the cell that's currently selected and then perform all your tricks on that. I personally think it's a bad habit, because if you run this code while you're on another worksheet and you had all this stuff written out on that worksheet, but you've made this code to run on a different sheet, it's just going to go and mess up. It's going to start grabbing things and equaling things to. So you just got to be really careful if you do active worksheet reference. So you'll sort of see, I guess, if you do a bit of this, you'll see what I mean with active worksheet. Personally, I'd rather just do this. So if you go now dim worksheet, we'll just call it WS as worksheet. So now we've made another variable called worksheet, and you can probably take a guess with what we're going to do with worksheet. We're going to set worksheet. Yep, set worksheet equals to, now we can access the work. You could just type in this workbook dot whatever, just for the sake of, again, seeing where things are coming from. You can now just go workbook, our own variable that we've given a value of, and then you can go sheets or worksheets. Either one does the same thing. You can tab to finish the word, and then open parens, and it'll ask for an index. So you could either give it an index, because what this workbook has is an array of worksheets. So an array is you know, like those pillboxes that your grandma has, and it's got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But that would be like an array of pills. So that's kind of what an array looks like. It's just a big, it's just like a big, container of different things. So you could have an array of doubles, which means that it then has indexes. So so it was the variable was called myArray, and it had 5 indexes. If you wanted to get the first index, it would be 0, which can be confusing. So you'd say the value in the first index would be myArray, open parens, 0, close parens, and that will get that value out of there. So it's just a way of storing a lot of values that are related in one thing. So in this case, worksheets is an array of worksheets, and we need to give it an index number, what we want. So this one, I imagine it would be 0, but an easier way to do it is put in a string. So you can put commas, and then you can type the name of your worksheet. So you can go worksheet, sheet 1, and now you've set WS to be equal to sheet 1. So if you had a big code in a workbook and you had to go and access different worksheets, you'd then just create another one of these, probably call it, I don't know, WS2, and that's equal to sheet 2. It just means that if we go and try and get a value, say we had div I as integer, say we wanted to equal I to a value on the worksheet, we could go this workbook dot worksheets sheet 1 dot range, and then you can go in and put in, I don't know, say we wanted C1 dot value. I think range defaults to value, but it's good practice to put what you're actually going in. So see how that gets pretty ugly? So now, because we've declared those other 2 things, we can get rid of all that there and just make it equal to, might actually copy that down here, and get rid of all of that and just call ws.range. Just makes a lot nicer code, sets things out. Again, see where things are coming from. It's kind of it's a bad habit to make super long, ugly strings of code, like functions, or like you're calling things within other things within other things, and it's just this big mess of a line. So it's kind of, it can be a lot nicer to limit yourself in that and maybe break things down into a few lines if you can. If it's an easy one like these functions, it's a pretty straightforward one, so there's no point going too crazy on spreading them out.
By typing in sheet 1, because I want to put that, it's not linked through to the title of the sheet. So if you change sheet 1 to the
Yes, yeah. So if if you want to change this to sheet 10, it's not going to know what you're talking about anymore. So
a way that we reference the actual, so like, it's an array.
Yep.
But that array just stores the name of that array. The array is actually something else. So
I think if you, I have seen maybe there is a properties. I don't know if Jono's still there. You'll probably know where this one is. Properties window, maybe. There you go. So if we were to click on this sheet now, you'll see the name of the sheet is sheet 10. Yeah, okay, I can't actually answer what's going on there, why that's still sheet 1. Usually it would...
If you had this module within the spreadsheet that you're sharing with somebody and then just change the name, then nothing would work?
Yeah, that's right. It would, it'd have a freak out. I would have thought there would be a way of just the index, but I'd also imagine that if you then grab that and move that, the index also changes. So that's now in the second place. So yeah, it's probably something to be aware of. If we'll get rid of this here, and we can do a little test just by doing the debug print, and then we can say ws.name, and that should print out sheet 1, and that's not getting it from just what we've put here. It's actually got the worksheet and you're asking it what the name is, we can even go full path. Actually, before we go too far, if you save it, so just go save it to your desktop or something. Demo 2, you need to make sure you save these as XLSM. So it's a macro-enabled workbook. If you go and save it in XLSX, it's going to remove all that code. Either remove it or it just won't work. I get a feeling that it's removed it from you before though. So yeah, make sure that you save it as that. It's probably a good habit as soon as you make the workbook to go and save it as that. So then you can just keep saving and it's not going to lose the code. So it'll be, yeah, it's the second one in the list there. So save that, and then if we jump back over to here. So now it might be better off if we did path, say, path one. Try full name. There you go. So full name would be the path of the workbook. So this is just a nice, probably a quick, easy way to check that you've collected sheet 1 and put it into a variable. So if we just hit run on that, yeah, not happy. Just try and name to start with. That's not. That would. Right. So yeah, because I changed the name of the sheet. There you go. So we do that and then run that. Get sheet 1. If we change that to full name, ran that. Still not. Did yours work there, Chuck?
Sorry?
Did yours work for full name?
No.
Unless it's full. Hey. That's it. It might sorry, it might need to be workbook full name because you're actually looking for the path of the workbook, not the worksheet. There you go. So full name workbook. That might have path now. Path. There you go. So if you do workbook path, that makes a lot more sense, right? So if you run
Full name works for workbook. If you get a wb.fullname, I get a output.
Yeah, so it gives you a directory. Yeah, so I think it's because I didn't save this one. I accidentally saved that other one. So I'm just going to call my book one. So there, you'll see there too, when I've tried to save that as an XLSX, it's gone, hang on a minute, it's got code in it. So it's a good error to not brush off and actually read because it's going to save you a bit of time.
So where would you use, like why would you need to find the location of the workbook?
I guess something like the forecasting sheets that I did. If you can imagine that, there's one sort of master sheet which you guys probably haven't seen. Most of you have probably seen the other one though. That everyone gets that colourful worksheet with all their jobs on it. So they're getting stashed in the server, right? Each person's workbook is a single workbook, and then there's the master one as well. So that master one needs to go, all right, I need to get this workbook, open it, grab all the values out, pull it into the master sheet, and all that. So
you need to be able to locate that.
Yeah, often you'll need to get the path for workbook if you want to read the other workbook. So if you want to read something else, yeah, and it's not open, yeah, you'll need to do that.
So it has to be all there.
So sorry to go back a while. When you go WS equals worksheets, it's worksheets because you're looking at the multiple sheets.
Yeah, you're gonna pick a sheet from the workbook. So you've gone wb.worksheets, and then you've told it which worksheet.
Yeah, she's one. Okay.
Yeah. If you did.
Use either half or full.
What's that?
You use either half or full.
Just have a look at the difference. I think then just print both and see. Yeah. See if there's. In this case, I guess if it's the same, yeah. Yeah, so we should print that one.
If you use path, it doesn't come up with the actual name of the document.
Yeah, there you go. So pass where it lives and full name is including document name.
Twice.
Alright, so we'll get rid of that debug one. Or another thing here, if you want to check your worksheets running, you could just run your debug.print and then try and grab a value from the worksheet. So to do that, we go to worksheet.range and then open parens and tell it what range. So you can either do this as two numbers separated by a comma. Oh, sorry, you'd do that under cells. So you'd say cells, and then you could say row 1, column 1. When you talk about rows and columns, they don't start at 0, so it can be a bit confusing. We could do it that way, or you could say range and then put in quotation marks A1, and that would be the same as this. So we've gone worksheet cells range dot value, and see it's formatted it for us. So if we run that now, it should say, yeah, diameter. So that's just a quick way of telling that worksheet's correctly referenced or set up.
So I did not put that value after 1,1, and you did, but we got the same answer.
Yeah, so that's, I think so cells and range, it defaults to value. So it defaults to get value, but yeah, it's good practice to write dot value because you could be doing a number of things to that.
What else could you do?
Change the color of it if you wanted to.
You could theoretically
do anything to that cell.
You can theoretically dim variables without specifying what they are the whole way through, and it tries to figure it out, but it's horrible. Like, you should never do it.
Yeah, so you can actually do it without putting dim, can you?
No, you have dim WB, but don't leave off the as whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And it tries to figure it out what it is.
So that's
horrible to do.
That's kind of like you can declare things as a variant, which means that it could be anything, and it'll work it out at runtime what it should be. So if you try and assign a double to it, it'll go, okay, this is a double. That's sometimes necessary, but try not to do it. Try to be very specific in what everything is, and yeah, you shouldn't need to. So yeah, so we know that's working now. We can move into collecting some. We'll set the loop up first, or maybe we do. Let's forget the loop for now because it might be a bit. I don't know. I remember loops are a bit overwhelming for me at first. There's a lot going on already that you're trying to remember. So we'll forget the loop for now. We'll come back and add it, but for now we'll just work with this. Say the very first one here, and to do that, we're going to need to get the diameter for the row. So we can create a variable, say, and we can call it whatever you like again, diameter, dia, d. You just can't declare them twice, so we can go dim d for diameter as double. So we want to make sure it's double. If we put texts or a mix of stuff into the worksheet, it's again, you're not going to be able to do much with it because you'd be grabbing a string then, and you're trying to assign that to a double. So we say dim d is double. Now that same little thing we just did to get the word diameter, we want to do to get the actual diameter. So now we can go d is equal to worksheet dot range. Again, a few ways you could do cells and then the cell number, which is what we're going to end up with later. For now, we'll just do this. So this is passing in a static reference, I guess. You can't, doesn't matter how many times you run this code, if you put in a loop with things changing, it's always going to be referencing A2. So the diameter is always going to be 0.5 in this case. So we can go that, and then again, you could leave that there, or good practice, put value. So now we should have D stored in there. Again, you could get that nifty little debug. You could even just leave a debug line down here and just change what you pass into it. So just put a D down there, and we expect to see 0.5, 0.5. So now we can go to the next one, and we can go dim boolean. So this is a different type. If you've got so true and false on the sheet, that is written as a string, but obviously the VBA has been made to recognize that true or false is a boolean. It's a buzzword for coding. You know, it's a sort of preserved word. So if it reads that cell and it says true, and you're trying to assign it to a boolean, it's going to go, it's true. It's not a string, but it's a yes or a no. So think binary, you know, zeros and ones. So false is a 0 and true is 1. So it's just another way of displaying the zeros and ones, seeing something that's so frequently used. So we'll call this whatever you want, calculate or calc. Call mine calc. Feel free to spice things up and call it something else. So dim calc as boolean. So yeah, boolean there. So now it's expecting this to be equal to true or false. We could assign number 1 to this, and it would take that as a true. Imagine this calc equals 1, so it's already saying is it true or false. If I try to give it 1, I won't bother testing, but you know what? Let's put it in there. Calc. Yeah, so see it recognizes that 1 equals true, and then if we put a 0 equals false, let's see what happens with 2.
Sure.
So it looks like everything over 1 is just true. Give it a -1. That's still true. So the only thing that's equal to false is a 0. So you could also write true, and it'll recognize that. That's a reserved word for the code. So you see it capitalized. It's even got a bit of blue. You can see it up on the TV there a bit better. So we don't want to give it true. We want to see what the value is on the workbook in case we change that from the worksheet. So calc is equal to ws dot range, and then open parens, type in the similar thing to before, so B2 we're dealing with.
To get the 2
I'm not sure if there is in this language or not. If you did that, yeah. In most languages, if you tabbed twice, it would then sort of create the structure of that range with parens, and it'll go through and you just populate it really quickly. Again, this is kind of bare bones because they've jammed it into an Excel program. So I think it is pretty good. The commenting thing's something that I didn't even ever realize was in there until Jono just pointed that out. Yeah, so anyway, range, tell it we want B2 dot value. Then we'll do a very similar thing with the next one. We'll go, but this one is going to be a different type again. So I might just call this one property. So what kind of property do we want to be? I'll call it prop, because if you type property, that's probably a reserved keyword. So what are we declaring this one as? Yes. So now we can equal prop to ws.range value in, what are we in C2? You're flying ahead there in my head.
What's with the property? Where is the property come from?
So the name prop.
Yeah.
I've just called that property because we're reading this and determining what property of the circle that we want to calculate. So depending if this is a P or an A, we're going to output the perimeter or the area.
Okay.
There.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I've just called it prop for property. You can again call that whatever you want. They're your variables.
So for instance, if you're going to make like a bending moment diagram, you could say bend and do the same thing.
Yeah, that's it.
Or shear force or whatever you want.
If you wanted to draw a polygon.
Yeah.
Is that what you do?
Yeah.
Call it poly. All right, so now we've got the three things that we need to create a result. You going there, aren't you? Hanging on.
I did, but it's not coming up. You know how you just drop down?
So you've created this variable, right? It's just this empty cup, and you want to give it something.
Go again?
So yes, yeah. So just that's right. If you can even no, you can leave it how you had it. Just go and do it, and then just go get rid of the dot on the end and go to the next line. Get it friends. Dot value. Yeah. Value. If you go. What's coming up? Inside. There you go. So do the formatting for it. So yeah, a variable is just an empty cup, and you want to give it something. So it's just sitting there going.
This equals.
Yeah, it's just something you can access later. So rather than always referencing a number, you might want to just reference this variable, and then you can change that variable, which you'll see later on becomes very handy to have things laid out like this.
How come you don't have it equal over there?
Hey? Oh, because mine won't work.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So now we've got all the three things that we need to work out a result, but we need to know which result to put out to the sheet. So we could now you could say dim area. Say we'll just work with area first as double, and then now we can say area equals, and we can call that function, right? Calculate area. So it's a calculate area, and then when we open parens, it'll ask what the diameter is, because we've told down here that this is the input that it has to take in. And then you can see here that it's saying as double at the end, because that's what it's passing back, and then you're putting that into area. So if we then, you don't want to type in, this is where you just got to be careful that you're referencing the correct variable. So we've called it dir down here, we've called it d here, up here we've also called it d. This is the one up here that we're referencing when we type in d. So calculate area d. Now area is going to be equal to the diameter of, finding the area of a circle using diameter of 0.5. And then we'll go down to the worksheet, and we want to print that out to the worksheet.
Maybe just talk through what happened there with, you put d in calculate area function, and then it takes that value down. Yeah,
so we've sort of handballed this off to another place. So we're in this scope, and we know what the diameter is when we're inside these walls of this sub. We can, I don't know, hop on the phone to the other office here and say, we have a diameter of 0.5, can you give me an area? So it goes, a function can be recognized from within another sub, but what's inside that function can't be unless it goes through the door, I guess, of this line. So you say calculate area D, it goes in, and it's now being passed into here, because remember how it said it had the suggestion thingy, the tooltip, and it said dir, and we said dir is equal to d. Now dir is holding the value of what we passed in, and then it's gone here. It's gone dim area as double, doing things the long way here. Area equals worksheet function pi times dir from there to the power of 2 on 4, and then we've returned calculate area equals area. Personally, I don't really like that. Other languages, you type return area. Makes a lot of sense, right? You're returning that value once you're finished. But this is, I don't know, maybe you can do it. Make my day. So you just assign it to the name of the function, and that's it. I guess, yeah, you can kind of think of that as just like a variable, I guess, and then you're assigning area to that variable, and then you're using that here to get it. So now we've got area. We've got the area while we're in our sub, and we want to write this out to the worksheet. So we could just do it in here, or we could make another sub that writes the worksheet. So the reason we'll make another sub rather than a function is, I don't think you actually have to return something with a function. Maybe you do. Some languages you do. This one might not, but it's probably better to think that a sub is like, no return types. You can give it inputs to work with, like we have with these other functions, but I think of a sub as no return type. So if you get in here now, and we'll say make a new sub, and we'll call it write to sheet or something, or print to sheet, whatever you want to call it. Call one print to sheet. Open parens, enter. It'll complete the end sub. So when we are printing to the sheet, what parameters does this subroutine need to know to print a value to the sheet? We want to tell it, you could hard code into here the directory, like the range, the cell. It'd be nicer if we already have that up here. We can just pass that in and tell it it's going to there. So if we go here and we can start by saying, give us a worksheet that you want to print to. So we can say, again, we'll call it sheet here, just so you recognize the difference. You probably just call it WS again, really, but just so you know that which one's referencing which and not, mixing them up, we'll call it sheet as a worksheet. Then we can go comma. So this is like what Tom was saying earlier, you can have a few inputs. So we'll say sheet as worksheet, and then we can go range. We'll call it RNG as range. And then, of course, we've now got the exact location we want to print to. It needs to know what to print to that. So we can then go comma and go val for value or something like that. If you put value, I don't think that'll work. That'll be another reserved keyword. Value as, it's going to be a double in both cases. You could do a string and pass it in a string. It's easy to convert a double to a string, but harder to convert a string back to a double. Kind of makes sense though, because once you turn it into just an English word, it can be an English word. If you try to take a string, a word, and make it a number, there's a few more checks it's got to do on that to confirm that it is a number that you're giving it. So we'll just do double for now. So now we've got the sheet here, we've got the range. If you try to do it to your worksheet, it's not going to know what you're talking about there, because that's in a different scope. But if we go sheet dot range, what do we? Yeah, I think you might have to tell it range as RNG. I'm not too sure. That might actually recognize the range. Let's just try it, see what happens. If you pass in a range, it would already be part of a worksheet. right? So you'd say worksheet dot range, so it knows what worksheet it is. So let's just try it with range and see if that works for now. You might not even need sheet. Otherwise, you could, instead of passing in RNG as range, we could pass in B4 or whatever we wanted to as a string, and then we could put sheet dot range and then input here, but not as a string because it's already a string. Something like that. What we'll do though is we'll just try RNG and then dot value. So it knows that it's a range. I've had weird behavior with ranges before, so I don't have much confidence in them. We'll see what happens. And we're going to equal that to val, which is that variable that we've passed in here, some value. So that's a pretty tiny little subroutine. We've just kind of done it for the sake of doing it. So if we went up here and we said we want to print a sheet, maybe, so we'll test by going print a sheet, but to call another sub, you have to type call, because it'll, again, it won't know what you're talking about. Print to sheet, and it's going to say we aren't using this sheet in there at the moment, but you need to give it something because you've declared the subroutine as having those inputs, so you need to give it something for now, even though that won't be doing anything. And then we'll go range. So here we'll just give it some range, say D2 for now. So we'll go worksheet.range. If this works, then we'll clean up our sub and get rid of that worksheet in the first parameter. We'll go D2 and then go, so that's a range declared or specified a range there. And then we'll just give it some value of whatever, 56.94, because that's a double. So if I try and run that now, it'll either, okay, so that works. So it's printed out to the sheet, the number. So what we'll do is we'll just come back down to here and get rid of that. Or you can keep it, up to you if you want to, just depends how you type in. So you could just have worksheet and then this bit here and pass that in, but we'll just get rid of this for now. And then we'll have to, if we try and run that now, it's not going to know what this WS, like we're passing 3 parameters into something that we've specified as having 2 inputs. So if we run that, it's going to, yeah, wrong number of arguments or invalid property assignment. So we'll just get rid of that WS.
What was it, 56?
Just a random number, just for testing, yeah. So we'll change that now to area.
Oh, gotcha.
How did you test that? What did you press for to test it on?
Oh, I just put it into our main sub,
yeah,
and then I just ran it. So what I've done is I've said call print to sheet, which is our subroutine down here.
Yeah.
And I've told it the range that I want it to print to, and the value that I want it to print into that range. So then up here we've gone call print to sheet, we've told it the range, and we've told it the number area that we calculated back here.
So I get an error if I run that compile error.
Print to sheet is a function, is it?
No, it's one that we just made there. So we've just made a subroutine. Yeah, you could skip all
that's
that.
Because since you've made a subroutine, that's why when you go back up top, it picks up like values. So if you just delete right up to just before WS.
So yeah.
If you delete right up to WS, you know how it shows like something, comma. So if you delete that.
Yeah, I'm trying to run that.
And then delete the area as well.
Delete that. Yeah.
Yeah, you know that yellow kind of underline that count?
Yeah.
To tell you like what to enter?
So arguments are not optional.
No.
And then it had that.
Like when you're typing, it kind of came at the bottom. Like, yeah, that's because you made the subroutine.
Yeah. So you can see that it's asking even for the names that we've told. We've told it that we're going to call it range. RNG. You can call it whatever you like there. But yeah, because we've told it down here, that's what it is. That's what it's going to ask for up here. So RNG as range. Give it all those.
That's a good
Yeah.
to follow. Otherwise,
Yeah. So just make sure you write things out properly.
Okay. Jacques, say what you see. If I do that, I can run. Why does it show up?
Check my sheet, is that printed out?
I've got quarter print WS for
I think this was there. Can I delete this?
What's your quarter print?
Change the number and entry.
Yeah, so you replace area with a number, just a random number. Smash that. Big run.
Sorry, not into it. Okay, that helps.
Isn't this a real backwards way to print it to the sheet though?
Yeah. Oh, you wouldn't do that. You'd do it in one line. So what's in that sum, you would just write into that name. This is just to prove another sum or show how we can use other sums. Just pass things around. Because it's good practice to all your functions in sub have one purpose, right? And then that's then where your main routine comes in. So your main routine is like
your code.
It's the boss.
And then everything else is just like
yeah. So the main routine is Simon, right? And then all these other functions are us. And Simon's the delegator. So he comes in, wins the bread, comes into the office, he goes, guys, I've got this job, this job, this job. Can you work that out for me, Jacques? Fariel, can you work out the area of a circle for me? And then you guys come back and go, Simon, this is what it is. And then he carries on with all that. So he's...
So you don't want to put like print and stuff in like the main.
Yeah, so it's really good practice to just break things up into specific tasks. Subs and the functions.
Oh, problem.
So if I go there, it doesn't do anything.
Area. Where's your calculate area? Yeah, diameter is double. So you've gone area. Area. So
Probably a quick question. You seem to know what's going on. So if we were to reuse this in a different worksheet, like let's say you can copy them onto import export, would you have to pass diameter to the A2 value, A2 cell in your sheet 1 and the Boolean true false to B2, so you need to match that up exactly for
No,
two.
sorry.
So realistically, what you do is you just copy the sheet, the whole workbook, you just copy the Excel file.
what have you done on that first
And
line?
reuse the whole file.
Diameter. Dia.
Can you name
Create a variable
stuff
called
on the
dia,
Excel version
and then you
call
try
by
to
that
give
name on
D a value.
So it should have been.
I think so.
As in calling the cell?
Yeah.
not the cell, but
Yeah, like you give the cell
trying to give
That's what I
this value.
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah, you can do that.
but a table as
That
well.
D should have been
If I call a table and I
So
want
if you
to
type in
interpolate something, I just tell it to interpolate
And then
in this table
Then just
with this
check down
value.
here
I think you can ask
where you did your calculate
That's what I
area
recall from uni.
and you're trying to pass in D. So you want to calculate area of D, you want to do calculate area of dia. So if we just named in every function, if we just named diameter D, we wouldn't have these problems, but this is a good way to see that it matters where you're trying to reference. So by trying to reference D, that's in some other thing, it doesn't know what it is. So you just got to make sure that within a scope, calling it the same name.
Can you do like D1, D2, D3? That's fine.
Yeah.
As long as it's within the space on either side. Like whatever you space it, does that make sense? So if you say like D1 space, anything within those.
It won't, if you try to declare a variable with a space in it, it won't. So you put it underscore. Keep this one.
Can you name things on the spreadsheet and then call them here on your code instead of looking for that cell?
Yes, you can. So in here, you can change that. Or here, you can change that to dia. or let's call it D1, like Tom was saying. And then now if you, sorry, I might have.
It's not a letter.
Ah, right, of course, D1's already reserved by this cell over here. Okay, we'll name it Steve. So, so now it's called Steve. There's somewhere in here there's a manager thing, and you can see. What am I looking for? Formula, sorry. So name manager, and you'll see that Steve is equal to sheet 1A2. So if we go back now to the code, and we just go down here and make another sub for this little example. Sub minus sub. If we tried to grab that, bring that back down here, and then we said debug.print worksheet dot. I think you don't have to have parens on these two, which in VBA, which it's a bit lame because in some cases it'll throw an error, others it won't. So if we go worksheet.range, because the range name is a string, we can't use cells. We go range, and then it's a string, so we put it was Steve, all lowercase. .value. We run that. It should print out whatever that. Yeah, 0.5. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Not many people know that, and that goes for in-cell functions too.
You can reuse it on different.
Yeah, if we said this one here equals to Steve, you'll see Steve pops up. Yeah, it didn't work in that case. No.
Like a table.
E.
Like a table, you have to.
E equals 0.5. That's a really It does get a bit buggy when you name a few things if you're not careful. But if you just go to the name manager, you'll see that you've called two places the same thing or something like that. Yeah, really nifty little trick. Yeah, formulas and then name manager. You don't even have to. You just need your formula bar and you can just type it into there. I think if you go there and it shows you all your custom ones in there as well. So yeah, if we click that, it takes us over there. So you imagine, especially draftees, I guess, probably not so much, but the engineers, we write out these functions all the time that are just straight out of the code, and it's like you go and look at the function B1 times B3 times C4. If you just name those, yeah, phi, and then you name the next one whatever. Yeah,
it's a way to QA as well.
Yeah, you can give it the names of all those letters that we see in the code in a function.
You can do symbols.
Yeah, I think you can use what's like a
font symbol.
Not on VBA.
Yeah, I don't. You could print it as.
Could you name it?
I don't think so. It would be a nightmare anyway when you try and call that, because you have to copy that in.
Wouldn't it depend on the language it's written into? Because like different, like if you're writing, for instance, in Times New Roman and you're doing a symbol, it's going to be different to if you're doing an area with a symbol.
Like 1,000 fines times.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like if you're putting fine, because it's going to be different, and then you won't know.
Pull the right one from the right language. Yeah.
Because it's the same in different languages. If you use an accent from a different language, it won't recognize it.
Yeah, to a computer, it's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
And that's it. A few different languages, whatever they have, Greek and Cyrillic or something. They probably have phi each, but they're kind of different phi's. To a computer, they're very different. Anyway.
If you want to learn to code in another language, you should learn to code in English. That's basically.
Yeah. All right, so we'll go back to over here. Get rid of that one. So if we go back up to here now, our last thing that we did was printed to D2. Get rid of that. Run that again. All right, so that's the area, right? We've got here that we want perimeter. So what we can do is we've calculated area. We've calculated area there. we could calculate the perimeter as well, but what we'll do is we'll do an if statement first. So we want to check if we've got that cell equal to P or to A, and then do the correct procedure after that. So if we go if prop, because that's the property that we've pulled from the sheet and we've called it prop, so it's going to be equal to A or P, the string A or P. If prop equals, and we say A in quotes, because that's a string, then this is why Visual Basic is pretty cool, is it's very English, so it's really good for learning. And if, so we've now created an if block there. So within that if block we would tab in to keep things clean. Go down to there, give yourself a bit of space. So what we want to do is if prop equals A, then we want to say we want to get the area and then write it to the sheet. Yeah. So there's a bunch of ways. We'll do it this way. It's kind of writing a few things. If we grab that and just drag it up, highlight that and drag it into the block. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and drop it. So this is where see how confusing that can be to read. So just hit your tab, and unless they do have in here, they might have an auto.
We're going to have another prop equals P, similar code, but perimeter equals prop perimeter. Okay.
Yeah, so we'll put in there, pull that over. So if prop equals A, then it'll do this, calculate the area and write it. So if we go over here, it should only print if this is equal to A, which is equal to P on mine. So if I hit that, it'll do nothing. It's running, but the condition's not met, so it doesn't do anything. If we go down here, before the end if, we can put else. So then it'll assess that first part, and if it doesn't meet this condition, then it'll go and try it and do this block.
And if there's like three things, then you would have if prop A, something, P, something, and then else.
Yeah, or you could do else if. So what I'll do is I'll explain how this else, the if works here, because there's a difference between else and else if. So if we do this, might actually be better if we come back to this and we just wrap it in the loop first. What we'll do is we'll just leave it to that. Just get rid of that else for now, because you'll see a better explanation of that when we've got it looping through. Okay, so what we've done now is we've made something that just prints this result, right, for 1. So we want to do it for but rather than, because we've named everything A2, B2, C2, D2, it's just getting the stuff for this thing. So it's really, you could go and type that out for every single row, but that's horrible, right? So what we do is we'd use a loop, and it'll loop through this block of code however many times you tell it to, but every loop that it goes around, you have an integer which you increment. So it runs through that loop, and I is equal to 1 during that loop. Then it goes to the next loop, and you bump it up to 2. So by doing that, you've got this moving variable inside the same block of code that's just running over and over and over. So then you can make it cycle to different lines. So it's a bit hard to explain. You'll see it work here. I wasn't actually going to include this because it's probably already taking in enough information, but I think it kind of shows a lot of power. Loops are just awesome. So what we want to do now is kind of make it a dynamic thing. So we know that we've got row 2 to row 15. We need to do something, right? 2 to 15. That's the two numbers we need. So if we go into here, probably could do with a bigger screen here. We declare, then we loop through each row. So it's kind of back up here because we want to do all this for each row. We want to wrap all of that into a loop, right? So I'd probably, just go up here, the loop part that we put, and the syntax will be, okay, this is where we'll see that option explicit thing to do its thing. So if we go for I is your typical variable name for an integer in a loop. It's just, you don't have to, you can name it anything, but it's pretty common to see that. So if you go for I equals 2 to 15, because we want to go through rows 2 to 15, right? If we do that, it'll fill out, and then you'd have next. And now that's a block of, similar to that if statement. You know, it's just a little chunk of code that'll do a thing for you. So what we could do is we could put in that debug.print and then put I. So now what should happen is it should come to this block. It'll start here and it'll go I equals 2, debug print 2. Then it'll go next, I equals 3, debug print I equals 3, and so on. It'll go through to 15.
Should you not set the increment value? Is it always 1 as a default?
It defaults to 1. You can add after here step, and you could put 2, and it'll jump from 2 to 4 to 6 to 8. You could put step -1, and it would. But then in that case, it's not going to work because if you go 2 and you go down, you're not going to reach your 15, are you? So you have 15 to 2, step -1. So by default, it goes up by 1s. So this is a good place. This is where you would use an integer or a long, another type, just a gigantic integer, I guess, big version of an integer. Harder to overflow that. So if we do that and then hit run, variable not defined. So that's that option explicit thing. So if you go up and get rid of option explicit, so just put a comma, the apostrophe before it.
That was supposed to happen.
Oh no, yours works. So if you go right up to the top, very top of your code, did you not put option explicit? Yeah. So see how we put up the top there, option explicit? Up there.
Oh, yeah.
So that's kind of, by turning that on, it makes the code really fussy. So it makes you declare things, which is good practice for beginning. It just stops you from.
Sorry, what does fussy mean?
Fussy. It's like.
It has to find I. What is I?
Yeah, you got to be really specific with it.
Okay.
It's yeah.
Helps to prevent errors that you don't know what the error is.
Yeah. Yeah. So you might just get the code runs and it doesn't throw you an error. But if you got option explicit on, it gets rid of a lot of those instances where it'll go, well, hang on a minute, you haven't actually told us what I is. Is it a string? Is it a double? Is it a...
So can you add the line above the for loop, dim I as integer?
Yes, that's it. And then it would work. So if we ran this now while that's commented out, it'll work. Run main. There you go. So it's gone through and it's printed all those numbers out from 2 to 15 plus that other boolean we had in there. So if I just clear out that immediate window and then turn that back on, so put your option explicit back on. Now if you run it, it's going to not like that. So like Jacques said, come down to your loop here and tell it what I is. So by running that, it highlights the I, it goes variable not defined. That's it being fussy. It's like, what is this? You know, not happy. So we go dim I. So this is where you could go integer, long is better. If you do integer and that loop was, let's do it, 33,000. So it's going to go through and print out 33,000. I might turn that off because that'll take a while, possibly.
Go 33, man.
Huh?
Go 33.
Yeah, it has to be 30. So an integer can only hold 32,000 something.
Okay.
You know what? We could actually find out how much an integer can hold by running that or not. It won't even run it because it knows that it's going to go above what it can hold. So, yeah.
Like 32,000 rows in the spreadsheet.
There used to be. Now there's 1,004,000 or something. So they bumped it up a bit. But yeah,
Time kept going down.
the old spreadsheets, they used to only have, whatever the integer number is, but now it goes down to a lot more.
What shortcut does do that?
Control arrow down. I'll write up a shortcuts for Excel.
Yeah.
Well, pin it on the wall, along with Strand 7 shortcuts. Alright, so if we try to do that, it doesn't work because we're trying to put a bigger number in there than it can hold, so we call that a long instead. And a long can hold tons. I don't know. Do you want to look that up, Colby, what the numbers are for integer and long? Alright, so if I run that now, it might take a while. Probably gonna, yeah. But you can see it's cycling through all those numbers that I've told it. Yeah, froze it. There we go. Got to the end. So I got to 33,000. No worries. Yeah, so when you loop through things, if it's printing and pasting stuff to spreadsheets, it will slow the code down so much. So if you've got a spreadsheet that's got heaps of functions on it, and you go changing numbers, and you're doing that thousands of times over, every time you change a number on that spreadsheet, it goes and recalculates all those formulas on the spreadsheet. So you're better off either having all your calculations in the code so that it doesn't sit there changing a ton of stuff after you change one number, and then it does that 33,000 times, say. Or in here you can turn off calculations. We won't do that here, but at the beginning of the code you'd say application calculation mode or whatever, manual, and that turns off auto calculations. And then at the end you'd say application auto calculations auto, and then it'll go through once you've changed all the stuff on the sheet, and it'll just do it once. So if you do that stuff, make sure you turn it back on. Otherwise, you'll be sitting there using your worksheet wondering why things aren't updating when you're punching values into the actual worksheet. Done that a lot of times, and I think I've caused that on other people's computers when I did forecasting.
So long can hold up to 2.1 billion.
There you go. So
Should be right.
yeah, we're definitely not going to test that one.
So if I have a spreadsheet that has tons of ifs, and it makes it really slow, if I would do the same on VBA, it wouldn't make it faster.
It's just the going back and forth between the code and the spreadsheet. So if you write a value to the sheet and then your sheet is on auto calculate, it'll go through and all the formulas that you've put into the actual sheet itself will then recalculate before the code then runs the next loop. So if it does that 33,000 times, it doesn't need to. If you just want it to do it at the end of the loop once everything's changed, then it'll cut out.
It's not an issue if you're doing it to like 15 calcs. If you're doing 1,000 calcs,
if you're doing heaps, you'll see.
If I'm doing 100, it would make it faster if I have those ifs, because I want to play by changing one value and see how it affects everything, but it has a lot of conditions.
Yeah, so it depends how you set up your sheet too. So if you need it to use the worksheet functions before you go to the next loop, say you change a number, you want the sheet to calculate all its things, then you want to grab the result of that and go and paste it somewhere, then do the next one, you'll need that on. But if you put those formulas for the sheet into the code, it'll just be so quick. It'll just be done, sort of thing. There's a really good YouTube series I'll send around to after this, and it's just got all this sort of stuff. The guys just in these quick videos for each sort of thing, variables, each statements, whatever. And there's like 14 hours worth of just minute-long videos, or some of them are a bit longer than that, but it sort of touches on all the basics. There's also another really cool video where a guy tests the increase in speed by using better practices, and I'll send that one around as well. I was showing you what he got.
1,000 times speed increase.
Yeah, it's about yeah, 1300 by the time he changed this block of code that was only this big, he changed it to use better practices, and it went from 1 times, and then he changed this bit and went 2 times, and he went to this one at 90 times, and by the end of changing 5 different sort of practices, it's 1,300 times quicker. So something that was taking a couple of minutes to run just ran like that. So yeah, if you start writing big stuff, it's worth learning how to make it fast. Yeah. Okay, so Control A, delete everything in there. Shrink that down a bit. So now we've got a loop here, but we don't want it to go to 33,000. We just want it to go to 15. If you wanted to do heaps of areas and perimeters, go for it. You just increase your loop and fill out all those down there. So here we know that our loop works, or just run that again, make sure. Yep, so it's going to 15, from 2 to 15, not from 1 to 15. Make a bit of space in here. Do the same thing. We're going to grab all that code that we wrote earlier. Or you'd write out what you need in there. I'll hold on.
Dim I.
So dim I is long. Created this variable that can hold, what is it, 2 billion, a number as big as 2 billion. And then created a loop. Yep, so for I is 2 to 15. Next. So next marks the end of the loop, so it knows to go to the next increment. So if we highlight that block of code that we made earlier down here, and then we're going to drag that up. Don't unhighlight it. Hopefully it doesn't itself. No, it does. So just highlight that again and hit tab once you've highlighted it all. So if I just highlight to there, I'm still within my loop. See how that can look really messy? You kind of don't know where your loop's starting and ending there. If we just grab all that and hit tab, it'll pull that across. So this is, yeah, again, this is where it's really good to use indentation and comments.
Okay, so now we change the A to Y.
Yeah, so that's a way to do it. Code. Yep, so drag that in. Yep, and you'll see how it's like kind of messy. So that inden's good. So you just go from the grab that down to the whole little tabs. Okay, punches. Yeah. So your next is good. That's the tab. So now that's a lot easier to read. Hey.
Yeah.
Kind of that's all. See the structure.
Yeah.
So everything's inside that form. Yeah. Again, if you use Visual Studio or something like that, it'll automatically format all this, and it color codes variables and methods to help you recognize what the difference is. So I definitely encourage using console apps in Visual Studio. It's just a lot more user friendly. If we're keen, we'll do another one and we'll do that, console apps. You just need to download Visual Studio and yeah, it's free. And it's Microsoft, so you know it'll be around forever. It's just, yeah, a lot more user friendly, especially for beginners, but this is, VBA is something that everyone would find a use for, really. I'm sure anyone in almost any industry could find a good use for a macro. Okay, so if we now read through what we've done here, we're running that block of code 15 or 14 times, but we've also made these static references that we did just to do that first row. So we'll do the 2 different ways here. From this line here to this line, there's 2 ways that we can grab that value out using this I. So the first one is to keep this. So we know that for every row that we go through, we know that D for diameter is going to be in column A. So we would get rid of that, have open quotations and A, and that's going to stay static for all the loops. And then we could concatenate things by going and then you can go I. So now when it gets to that, it's going to go worksheet range, and it's going to grab that, and it'll be depending on what loop we're in, it'll be A2, A3, A4, A5. That kind of, everyone following that?
Yeah.
No? Struggling?
Yeah,
It's pretty overwhelming.
You show it as like a step through at the end.
Yeah.
It all makes sense.
Yeah, we'll step through it. Good idea. So if you, just follow through now, and once we fix this up, we'll step into it and go slow through it and see what it does. So the other option here now of getting it is using cells. Really, I'll show you the two options. Pick one and just stick with it, really. Personally, I usually use range. Just more than you really need to be worrying about at this stage. You don't need to think about it. So you can go cells, open parens, close. So it asks for the row index, which we know is going to change, right? So with every loop, the I increases. This I value goes up to the next one. So the row will always be changing. So we're not going to give it some static value of 2 or 3. We'll give it I, and it knows to go to the next one. Focus! So now we can go to the column index, and we know it's similar to the A, but we're talking in numbers with cells. So we say 1, and then that's always going to be column 1. This is... Hey?
Is that not 0?
No, yeah, so it's a bit confusing that in arrays it can start from 0, but in worksheets they call this 1.
You're in the two.
Sorry? Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, yep, you're right. Sorry, so that is 2. I think what Colby was saying, it doesn't start from 0, is that what you... Yeah. So in arrays start from 0. In this case, they call column 1, 2. It would kind of be helpful if they just started from 0, like most convention. I guess your rows would then start from 0, which is just confusing to people that don't care about coding.
Rows start from 0.
Oh yeah, but I was saying if these were to start from 0, then that would be confusing to people that don't care about the code. So that's probably why they've just said it starts from 1. So it's just something that you got to think. If you've got a loop that starts, I don't know, from 0 to 15, you just got to make sure that your row is called I plus 1 or something like that, right? So did we do this one right? Yeah, diameter's A1. That one's, so yeah, okay. So then we can go down to here. Similar thing. Just make that C and I. So now we've gone and got the string for each row.
So can the WS cells I, 2, can that also remain range?
That could be this. Yeah, it could be B and I.
Okay.
So it's just the two ways that I've just shown. Possibly confusing, but I guess just a good thing to know that there's two ways to do it.
Further down the track, is it better to do it as cells or range? Like,
yeah, I think it depends.
Milliseconds will I say?
Yeah, how much will you shave off? So if you use range, you could define a range like this.
Oh,
Whereas cells, I'm pretty sure, is stuck to only one.
If you use range though and you wanted to step through columns, can you replace the A, B, C, D with the
Yeah,
I?
well, yeah, no, you
So you have to use cells in that case.
Yeah, yeah, I think you'd have to use cells. So that's a good point actually. So possibly it's a better idea to use cells. Yeah, because if you try to say you wanted to loop through a table of stuff and we had more than one result, we would have a nested loop, which probably cook your brains if you think too hard about it right now. But you'd have a loop within a loop. So for each row, we'd have for each column, we'd go through and print out a bunch of results. Then we'll go to the next row and for each column. So in that case, you can't be using letters. You'd use cells, and you'd increment the column as well. It's a good bit of homework. Try and write a loop that goes through rows and columns. I remember in our coding back in first year Eng, that was nested fors really made people lose it. I think one for loop's enough to start with. So we've got the param value. Now we're back down to this condition to print the result. So at the moment we've got if prop equals A, then area blah blah blah, print to sheet, our custom sub function that we subroutine down here that we made. Really overkill, but that then prints it out. So what happens if we run this now?
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, well done. So okay, so we better change this one as well. So you can do cells or range. It's got switched on. And then column index for this one.
Can you have the Excel window display like A bracket 1? Like, is there a way that you can set up Excel so that you're not trying to always work out which column you're in? You know, like D is 4, you know, like because it's right at the beginning of the alphabet, but it's X, X, or X, Y. Do you know if you can set up Excel to...
Need to start from E2 and just write the first column is 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. Would you mean making like a...
No, the actual view of Excel, like A next to the rest.
Oh, I don't know. Can you change these to numbers?
Yeah.
I don't know if you can. If you could, it'd probably be in here somewhere. Not sure. It would be pretty nifty, but it would be possibly Google. It's probably something you could find. Otherwise, you could just punch in the numbers there and work on a row below. Start with the row below. I've done that before. Yeah. Okay, so now what would happen if we ran this?
It'll work.
Will it?
Alright, mine's broken.
No, you.
Mine doesn't update if I change the true and false.
Next without 4. There's no.
So we've got the diameter. We've got the whether or not to calculate it. We've got this. So it doesn't know. It's going to print to these ones, but it's also only going to print area if it's true, right? Yeah, so we need to wrap this if statement into check if calculate is true. So get a bit messier again, and we'll go if calc, which is this ball up here that we've worked out. If that's equal to true, then
I think it's too late to ask this question. What's Boolean?
Boolean is a true or false value.
Okay.
So
it's an actual word for it, or did we come up with it?
No, Boolean's a type. Yeah, it's a real thing. It's not a variable name that we've defined.
It's not a state thing.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's a real word.
Yeah. So we've gone if calc equals true, and then we'll put and if. Don't forget that. Again, other languages will automatically put that there for you, which helps. But also, if you left that out, VBA wouldn't tell you until you ran it, and other languages again would tell you that there's a missing. And that's kind of where those dots that you saw in Visual Studio are kind of nifty. It shows you where things are starting and ending. So if you did put end if, those dots would just go and then suddenly stop, and you'd be like, you haven't closed it. So same thing. If calc equals true, then we want to run this. So we grab all that, we'll drop it in here. Type that one over. So this is now a nested if statement. So if we go if property is equal to A for area, then we'll run this. So now if we got rid of these and we ran it, what are we going to see now?
true.
It'll only calc true for area. So before, did we have any? We didn't have any areas in false. So say that one was false.
No, nothing ever copy. There's no error or anything.
Stuff around.
Yeah, so you've gone if calculus true, then end if here. So you want to bring this up into it because we only want to run this block if we've told it.
Oh, yeah.
Right, yeah. So bring that up into there. That's all. And then again, type that over.
And the changes will it run? No. So what it'll show later is you'll add a button.
Oh, sure. So the code doesn't just run.
Okay.
So we've ended that one, and then we've ended that one.
Yeah.
And then we go next.
Yeah. Okay. So if calculate is equal to true, we want it to give us a result. Then it'll say if property equals A, then it'll work out the area. We haven't told it what to do if it's equal to P yet, or if it's equal to nothing.
Okay, so if we run this now, it'll only print true values for area, another true value for area, true value for area. There's an area there, but it's set to false, so it hasn't given us. So that's doing something that we want now. That's a small win. It's not producing things for calculate equal to false. So
Oh no. False. The area is not working.
Yeah, property, PRLP.
Else or else if.
Depends what you.
Yeah, you could do else,
but if false doesn't.
It doesn't matter because
It doesn't clear it.
because
Oh, you've declared it.
because if you're dealing with a boolean, you just
Equals
do else
A, then you
because
set
it's
the
only
no,
one
blah,
range.
blah, blah, and then you go
If you're dealing with strings,
So I could go.
probably do else if
Because
because it could be you could do else and then maybe just do anything else that's in there other than A. So you put else if P, then do this, and then you could put else and that'll just be everything. Or you could just leave nothing there and it could do either. Or it'll only do P and A.
We can do either in this case.
you can, but what happens if you've got nothing in the P or A column?
Don't know else.
So probably not doing else.
Stop printing.
Did it have any problems with that?
it's running, which is the weird thing.
No. Okay.
Get rid of that. And then it's not running.
This is where you set up if you like fold this thing in like orange or something. Started.
Oh, it's just like a little tool.
Interpolation for you. I find I can like this spreadsheet I have
Try and run it now.
I've been talking from like
I'll go
Yeah.
there on
table I
roughly on
have to
that.
do the same code. And I came up with a way.
So you yeah.
It's
So you use
so
proper.
one, and I know how to code, but it's not in the
Call it property.
So one know how
Now you're trying to
Yep, I get
use it in some.
because I think I try to go my way and then I copy you over there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Oh, this is yeah. It could be pretty intensive for someone.
I think it's just I've fucking called something stupid.
PCM running forward using it.
Okay.
They're saying it's saving a lot of time. So what I did was just you keep the
So yours is
and then you calculate for
Yeah,
all the
yeah, like it looped.
Yeah, so
and just get the values, so you don't have to go for one.
I wanted to see how quickly it did it. I did a memo on one. I
at the moment, if it's false, it just doesn't run.
It proved that a Mac can do it.
Yeah.
You can
Map it fast.
modify it.
Especially on that's the highest spec you can get.
And it's also not running full parameter. Even though it's true. Something's fucked up there.
So let's see.
We're away next to John.
Well, I did 15.
So
Yeah, because we haven't added in the P yet.
No.
calculate. It was basically a check still.
Yeah.
And I did it. And it was for CQT.
Copy that. Yeah.
To check the bending and the torsion, but it just had so many conditions.
It's just all on one page.
Those things were not so
So before I was aim to do calculate WS range B I.
I think so. Because I missed the first one, I don't really understand the concept. Was the one I understand. I think it's the one.
If calc is equal to true,
But he hasn't finished it. It's a work in progress.
So if you just say
Yes. Yes, and it already calculates like the capacity. So it's just like this box checks it. Won't give you the result. You always need to think, but you already gave the section memory capacity.
String problems WS range CI. You've had no problems with WS using 100.
Yeah, up here in the space it's okay, cool. That's just good. Whole string of inputs.
Oh yeah.
Like remind you.
In the past,
And all this, no, this one, this has to be.
You go to a big print, you have books and books and
works.
Yes. And you need to do a change configuration.
Okay.
To calculate it just takes time. So what I do is take all the books, put it on
You can see like imagine doing like some giant code and you just make that little error.
And you can't, so this is going to frustrate me, turn me off, because it started playing on the Xcode and stuff.
Yeah.
And I just make stupid shit like that.
Yeah, just got to be so careful. And then, but a good way to work that one out quicker would have been go to your immediate window, your locals window,
Yeah.
and just step through it and just see where it does something that you're not expecting.
Yeah, okay.
So it would get to that line, be like, no, it'd skip that and go, oh, see that line. Yeah. Right, has everyone sort of got something happening? Is yours running well?
Yep.
Yep. So we've got if property equals A, do that one, tab that over. And then you can come down here and go else. So you could do else here, and then we can put in our, this will do anything but A. So this becomes, the block becomes if, else, and if. So if it's equal to A, it'll run that. Else, it could be equal to anything else, and it will do whatever's in here. So in this case, we've got P's or A's, so it kind of works. But if we took P, if we use that for the case that it's P, if we made one of those cells empty, it would still calculate the perimeter for that because it's just anything but A. So we could, could write Umar in there and it would still work. At least it works. Chargeable hours. So we could now write out you could copy it. Again, you'll probably forget to change one little thing in there and then it won't work. You're under control?
Yeah.
Cool. So we can go into here and we can say dim parim as double.
So if I called prim as perimeter before, I should make sure that
depends. Did you call it perimeter in a different function or in this sub? I don't think in this sub you shouldn't have called perimeter before. Anywhere inside this sub. So see, in a different function you would have, but in this subroutine up here, that's the limit of everything that you put inside that subroutine can't get out.
Okay.
Unless it's a function name.
Okay. So that shouldn't affect.
No, so you just call it whatever you want in here, but if you reference it again within this block, you need to make sure that the same thing that you've told the computer what it is. So if you go dim, where are we? Back down to here. So now we're going to write out a 1 for the perimeter. So dim prim as double as well. We go prim equals calculate perimeter. or whatever we call that function down here. So I called it calculate prim, so that wouldn't work. And then it's going to ask for the diameter.
Case sensitive? Your function, are you talking?
Yeah, so you'll see it'll correct. If you wrote a string, if you said this is the value of some string, that's definitely case sensitive. So Tom's say there wasn't running because you put a lowercase a instead of an uppercase a. So it's, yeah, you got to be really careful because it'll do something like that if you don't know why it's not working. Yeah, that's it. So you just got to be real careful. But that's what I mean. Like at the beginning, it's very particular. Go on.
Yeah.
Everyone's sort of up to speed, are they? That's the errors on your screen.
A variable undefined. Now we got to find
Well,
the
figure out what just yeah, just a little
Can't see those things.
Okay.
So yeah, it's kind of confusing that I use D in different one of the die here, but you see that it's particular to where you are and what you've called it within there. So we could do that, and then we can go again. We can go call.
So if I just
Because you probably called that function calculate perimeter.
yeah.
Remember the function to calculate perimeter. You've called.
But that's why I just went down and then you said it doesn't.
So the variables though, the name of the function is you can access the function from a different word.
Okay.
But the C here is what's in there. So
Okay.
C we use D there.
Just multiply.
Up here we call it dial. So we need to send that and then it becomes D. Well, the function knows that that's D.
Okay. Yeah. So because that is going to show up there, isn't it? Something when
Yeah, so we calculate it, and now we need to do that same call. Print the sheet.
So if we now go call, you know what? Let's keep it clean. Make that a result. And then similar thing, call print to sheet, custom sub that's got a ton of code in it. And similar thing, ws.cells, it'll be I and 4 as well, because that's the results column. And then it's going to ask, once we hit comma, it's going to say what's the value that you want to put there, and we've just worked out the perimeter, so it'll write that. Right, so now see the case that we have there called UMA. You wouldn't want it to print a perimeter or an area in there, but because we've used an else, then if it's not A, it'll send back the perimeter. So if we run that, we get everything except for the false ones that we turned it off. And UMA has a perimeter. So what we would do instead is use an else if. So if we go else if, so if prop equals P, then do this. So you can leave out the else, but if you wanted to do something in the case of anything else, you can just you can put else there and it'll do anything else. Otherwise you can just leave it out if you don't want to put anything in there. Yeah, you could put passing here, but see here we've told it that's a double, so that's where it's kind of better to probably call that a string. So I couldn't type a message in there, so change that to string. Don't know if it's going to want me to convert anything there, but yeah, so mismatch. So you convert that to string, which you can do C_str string, and that'll make that a string. Same thing with doubles, int C_dbl C_int.
And then you can use it later as a number.
Then yeah, you'd have to convert it back, which is kind of dangerous territory. That you've gone and changed it to a string, and then what if it's changed and accumulated some letters on it? So yeah, we'll just leave that out for now. But you can put anything there. So that's double, parim. Or you could. There's another thing you can do, message box. So that'll create a pop-up. Probably dangerous to use a message box inside a loop, especially if you went to 33,000 and you had a lot of cases. I've done it plenty of times before by accident.
It won't stop on the first one?
Well, it'll pop up with a message and then you press OK and it'll go and find the next one that's wrong and it'll pop up again. So if you had a lot of cases where it fell into this block of code here, then yeah.
They have those windows like the old school windows and stuff.
Yeah, that's it. So
Can you break it?
Yeah,
you'd probably just have to force quit the app to.
No, but in the code, can you?
Oh yeah, you.
break it? Can you say?
do message box and then after.
Oh yeah. Sorry, yeah. I think that would be called a break, but then it won't execute the rest of the code as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's do it.
Can I say before you do that?
Can we try?
Yeah, maybe just click over here, Control S. Go back into it. So message box, and you could get techie here and do that and thing and add lots of stuff and say get the value out and say Umar is not a valid input sort of thing. Sorry. So invalid property for row, put a space there, and I. That's going to say what's wrong. So
You create a drop down for P and A, then you don't have to need to do this because you can't mix it up.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you definitely could do that. Yeah, for the purpose of this, it was just to use strings and stuff. But if you were only going to have two values, then yeah, you'd use the data validation tool like we did over here. So if we run that, invalid property for row 6, Umar, get out. So if we say, if we, like Steiner was saying, if we had Steve over here, we're going to now run that and we'll get the message box twice for row 6, 10. So yeah, you don't want to get stuck in that. So I don't know what the syntax is, probably break. Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Exit loop.
Oh yeah, exit. It'd be exit 4. Yeah. So we'd want to get out of the for loop up there. So it'll find the next loop above it. There you go. Copy's on the ball. So if you had a loop inside a loop, it's going to break the first one that it's inside, sort of thing. So say we had no values in here and we ran this now, it's going to hit Umar. It's going to be like, that's not valid. And then it's just going to break. So we'll see nothing from 7 down. So invalid property for row 6, and now it's bailed out of the exit. So you don't get any, even for these ones here, you don't get anything. So exit 4. So that'll just find the parent, the next 4 above it. So back here, and it'll just kill it. Yeah, stop all of that. Okay, so we can. I'm just going to take that out, maybe, or I'll put debug print because I don't want to get 8 pop-ups. Debug print, so that'll just print down to here now. Get rid of that. Get rid of that there. Now what's going to happen? I think that should be about it, huh? So we still didn't get one for perimeter. Oh, that's because it's false. Yeah, that's that should be it. So yeah, you could put you could add your data validation to that. P or A.
and it'll have a freak out because we put in 2 incorrect values.
Excel data validation.
Yeah, so same as what I did here. True or false. Yeah, good way to make sure. That's kind of, a good way of eliminating not even necessarily user error, but unexpected things that users are going to give you. Again, forecasting. I had all these little shortcuts that I put. So if you wanted to pull all, what was it, your WIP, I think? Recoverable. So there's a recoverable column that says this much has been spent on this job. What's the recoverable value of that that's been that WIP sort of? And you could just type in all, and it will grab that and pull it over. So it just makes it quicker rather than the guys having to sit there and type in 1537.37 or whatever. Then just go all or half, and it'll just pull it over. But what I did was made these conditions that if the cell's equal to the string of half, pull this over. But I did lowercase half, and then people would start typing in capitalized H half, or just things like that. And then so people were just getting the sheets just throwing errors at them. And if you don't have the console open, it just pops up saying error. So I was just going, what is going on? And I think Aaron was one who put in something, and I went around and I was like, show me it again. He goes, types it in, and I was like, yeah, my fault. You got to like really make it robust and just think of that's what betas are for, like when people release betas of games and stuff, it's because you just get unexpected stuff from users and they just help debug all these weird possibilities that could happen.
You can make a string not case sensitive.
You could, yes.
All the variables like really capital H, capital I.
Yeah, what I would do is I would read the string, and then you can get an extension method and just lowercase it all. Yeah, so you'd read the string, you'd say this my string equals this range value dot to lower, or whatever they call it in VBA, and then that'll return to that variable a lowercase version of that string. So then you could just say if string equals all, and you just type in lowercase in your if it's so even if someone types in capital A, it's going to compare.
The way that spreadsheet's set up, like you go up to 10 or whatever number of cells that has that function behind it. So if there's nothing there to begin with, and somebody writes something in the background, your sheet's monitoring whether each of those cells has an active action.
Yeah, I can open it up. The template.
The background is constantly running.
Yeah, I think it's on an event. So when someone hits enter, the event that triggers is called cell changed. So you can actually in here. So if this is a benefit of being inside, having your code in a sheet. I think it's up in worksheet, and then you can go all these events. So if a value changes on that sheet, worksheet changed will trigger, and it passes in target as range. So that'll be the cell that changed. So I say if cell is equal to this, then I know that this cell's just changed. Run this check on it, and then because it just happens so quick, by the time you hit enter, by the time you pull your hand off, it's already done the check. So if we go to
sorry, something off topic here.
Yeah.
AutoCAD, it doesn't have its own VBA, and I know it does, but the buttons that I have, they are written like this, and it looks into Excel sheet and then it draws in AutoCAD. If there's problems in there, if I show that to you, would you be able to fix it?
It's actual VBA, yeah.
Yeah. Which is
it actual VBA in AutoCAD?
They list routines, and then they look into Excel sheets, and then they spit out AutoCAD lines.
Can you see the actual code, or is it like a built-in?
I think you can see it. So sometimes when the error comes up, you can click debug, and then this kind of page comes up.
Ah, okay. Yeah. Have a look at it.
And then
yeah. So this is the template. Those of you that are PMs would get one of these each month, and it lists all your jobs.
Yeah.
And you got to go out. It'll have all the details about the job, and then you.
Oh, it's because my screen's too small, so I've got those cells all frozen. Hey.
Scroll up.
Yeah, it's probably better. If I just look at the TV, it's okay then.
I'll turn your computer.
Yeah, so you get one of these and then you got to type in, punch all these values in. That's that one. It'll become available if there's a reason to put a value in. Anyway, if we go into here, PM template, you can put passwords on stuff too.
Yeah, honestly, you can do that in Excel on cells. You
Yeah.
Set it to not editable, so users can't even click on it or edit it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking for a knife.
Yeah, that's it.
You can break that.
You can. You got
You can
to.
use VBA to break it.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people will
Protection.
lock cells and then not lock code. There's actually there's two. You got to lock it twice.
Lock the code, you can get in.
Yeah, it depends. I can get in. Yeah.
I'll chat to you later.
Yeah, I usually there's
One that's locked.
another way you can do it if you open it in a hex reader and it comes up as a bunch of gibberish. You just got to find the right gibberish and delete it. Just removes the password. Yeah, you open it with a hex editor. But yeah, I've seen. I think Tim had a little bit of code that he ran in another. He would just make a new sheet, and because you've got two things open here, he'd run it in the one that's not locked, and it would break the other one. So he showed me the code. It looked pretty hectic. It was like 5 loops inside each other, and then it just goes through a bunch of different stuff. And the password that it finds that works isn't actually the password. It's just some weird string that works. So yeah, don't know how that works. But,
So you can take it off. You can unprotect it.
Yeah.
So you can unprotect it on the video and protect it again.
Don't go against the.
Yeah.
But you probably don't want that. If you protect it, you don't want to use it to
I think
change.
you had a bunch of protection. Each one.
That's what this screw to.
What's results connect?
It's not VBA. It's just its own thing.
oh, right. And then
You've
that
got result.
reads
That does something in AutoCAD.
What's results?
Yeah, I'll have a look later on.
This is a declaration.
So that's your checks there that you probably recognise a few of them. Message.
Why is it?
So this is it. It goes through and runs this check on once you try to submit and make sure.
That's awesome.
So it's telling it to create these message boxes.
This is in the forecasting. Have you done one?
Yeah, I do.
You've got a few of these messages. It pops up and says you've filled out stuff incorrectly.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So it's just checking that. This is the way of, again, making sure that users are giving us information that's going to work with the rest of the code. So, makes things robust. So I've been somewhat diligent with comments. It's kind of nifty. If someone else has to go through all this, then they can probably see it a lot easier how I've thought it out. Because there's a million ways to write this out.
Does it plug into
So you know how did that?
I think results connect with just text. I'm not sure.
That green mark at the start of the sentence
That's pretty good.
to stop it from turning into a
So just the rest of that line.
Yeah, so if you put that, what's it called?
Yeah, it's
Comma. Apostrophe, sorry.
Apostrophe?
Yeah. Comment.
In the actual formula, and it doesn't.
Oh, you do the.
It's showing the formula.
So if you want to do an equal sign, you just.
Oh, yeah.
Dash.
That's called escape. So
Actually, look into it.
escaping.
You want to add
follows, I guess.
Yeah, so it just keeps the formula without
Yeah.
the formula.
Yeah.
It's all from restraint, Excel, tables and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so this.
Some time on this.
So this, that's the one that locks, checks which cells should be locked, so blacks them out and clears them up.
Or you give it a color. But
Yeah, so you know how when you change the project type, the black goes black,
Yeah.
turns things up. Yeah, that's what that's doing there. So that's like what you're saying, Tom. What else can you change?
Yeah.
The LR range, interior color. So that changes the color of the cell. You can lock it from in here.
You can put a comment there anyway. Like, yeah, that words, is it reads better?
Yeah, so I've put so range 1.5. What on earth is that? That's the fee. Yeah, that's the invoice.
Just in case someone else takes
It just saves me like flicking back and forth to check what it is. When I wrote it out, I've gone, this is this, this is it. So really, I just copied that whole thing, paste, change them. Again,
So for every sub, like for this, because it's a sheet, did you have to copy those blocks for each thing, insert each one manually to, like for instance, if it's on this project and these things are blacking out, you physically had to hard code saying this cell, and this cell will black out?
Yeah, because it's like a template, this one.
Yeah.
So it's just a couple of these will go black or light depending on what is listed against that job.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll do that. I wanted to find the
When you get a new project manager, what's the process? Or you got an array or something that defines a list of project managers and it just...
Yeah, I've got a staff sheet in going here. If we open that one, I'm not going to because it's recording and it's full of fees and charge out rates and all that. It's just got a list of the staff and what their role is. So when forecasting is run, so Gemma starts it at the beginning of each month. She opens the sheet, says check for new staff. There's just a list of buttons. Yeah, so then actually it's probably a good one to show if this shows up on a different, so say October. So this is the master sheet. So each month you just copy that folder, rename it. When you open it, it recognizes that the month has changed and it will go new month and it'll clear it out. If this shows stuff, I'll have to edit it out. There's a lot of sensitive stuff. I was trying to connect to Newcastle server. So see down here, it's sitting there calculating stuff. Okay, so this is good. So this is the sort of the hub of where it all happens. So you open it up. If you've copied this and renamed it, so say that if you copied it and named it November, it would then pop up and say new month, run this function. But it pops up and says you need to do that. So then that value up there would change. So you hit new month, it clears the sheet out and gets it ready for a new month. Then you hit update staff, it reads that sheet and it pulls all that stuff into there. And then you just go through import synergy data, which you've already done a snapshot from a report, synergy report. Create PM sheets, grabs that template and puts everyone's personalized info into one and then saves it to their directory in the server under their office, under their name. Check completed, goes through and opens each one of those and then checks that little box up the top that says submitted or haven't or incomplete or whatever it says. If that's good, then it marks them as finished, and that's how we know how many people we've got through. Email reminder will generate an email to the people that haven't completed it.
The time on the side. 30 seconds.
Oh yeah, it's just kind of like a heads up because originally it was taking like some of these would take a long time, like 10 minutes or something to run one of these buttons, and then I sort of started to get better and clue onto things that would make it quicker.
Is that implementing good practice?
Exactly, exactly right. So using good practice turned one of the functions from half an hour down to 30 seconds or something like that.
Wow.
So that's like how, you just need, it's kind of hard to find the better way to do that. You kind of just work it out, or you might trip on it on the internet and someone goes, oh, if you do this, it'll be a lot quicker. Again, it's just trying not to go back and forth between things. If you got all the staff stuff, it was going through and it was reading each row of each staff and then putting it over. Instead, just went copy the whole thing, drop it in, and then make little adjustments that needed to be changed. Collect submissions will pull all the data from each person's individual sheet into collected data. So this will be the synergy export. And then this is kind of a mock, but with everyone's data in it that they've filled out. Then once you've done that, all these other charts and stuff that get sent around will be populated, and then you can just hit save, and it'll save them all to PDFs. Then you can do send charts, send summaries. They're just the two different types of things that it generates, and that'll send it to all the people. In there, there's all the staff members, and they have next to the name whether or not they should receive these emails, the people that need to see them. And then if you just hit send charts, send summaries, it'll send that around to all those people. So the other one, the one I wanted to show you was the change event. So workbook before close. So before anyone closes it, you can tell it to save the workbook. Or here you can say I've turned back on all those screen refreshing and events and stuff, so that people don't then go and start doing their work and the calculations are turned off and stuff like that. Backup, it creates a backup to another directory in case things go wrong with this or something that I don't foresee. I've told it to go and write this just copy everyone's data to a completely different area.
Would that only be working when you're running it though?
What's that?
Like that. So when you started to run it?
So what I've done is when people close it, it'll go save backup, and it'll run that before, and it'll go copy and save over there. I don't know where the change one lives. It must be in. Oh, wrong one. Workbook change. Oh, there you go. There's the password to get in the sheet. So there's
Can you do like a control F?
Yeah, I think so. Oh, it's going to come up with a. Oh, there you go. Case. So it's called a switch statement, and you start it by saying select. Probably look a bit cleaner if we did that. Select. That's something with switch statements. I'm pretty sure that each case sort of lives at the same level. It's kind of something like that. I forgot I put that in there. Yeah. I think that was the case of when Aaron was putting in capital Y or something, and I was just like, oh. Anyhow, so you can see there, what I've done is grab the value out that they've put in, and then I've lowercased it, and then I compare that value to no, none. So you could type in none like that, and it'll still do the same thing because it's lowercase. Anyhow, yeah.
Before you leave, can you show everyone how to put a button on there?
Oh yeah, of course. Forgot about that one.
Show me the money from? Was it like Age of Empires cheap or something?
I think it was that as well. I think it's from Catch Me If You Can.
Jerry White.
Yeah. Show me the money.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of those.
Isn't that Motherlode in City of Sins?
Okay, so just back into our code that we did. We've got our subs and functions. We've got this sub here, main. That's the one we want to run when we click a button. So we come back to the developer tab. You got your tools here that you can add, your controls. So there's all sorts of controls in there that you can learn how to use: combo boxes, tick boxes, scrolling list things. The first one here is a button. So if you just click the button and then go down here and just drag where you want that button to be, and that's all there is to it. It'll ask you what do you want to run when that happens. So in my case, it's showing me that other sheet as well that I have open. You should just see main or UMA or whatever you called it. And if you just hit main OK, it'll create a button there. While it's got the handles around it, if you just go over there and click, you'll be able to grab that and type in whatever you want.
Results.
Yeah, show me the results. Probably. Yeah, show me the main. So now every time you hit that, it'll run.
Oh, mine's compiling error.
So you've gone else if prop equals p, so you didn't call it prop, remember you called it property.
I'm still on that shit.
So I might, yeah, if you can, we can sit down and talk about scope of variables.
And is there anything else after else?
Well, if you've got it doing something when it's equal to A, you've got it doing something when it's equal to P. Do you want it doing anything when it's equal to anything else?
No, I've only got.
So you could leave it empty, or you just do anything else. And that just gets rid of that block. That's just else if.
So you're saying I just remove those?
Yeah. If you delete key. So now, say you change one of those false boxes to true, and then click run again, and it should fill out that one. It is actually filling out all of them over and over.
Yeah, but we can't see it.
Just to create functions, like the lower function group created, and then just reuse those functions.
So now if you add more values down here,
I save this as
You just need to look at what your rules
just
say
open
to.
that
So if you
one.
just right click the button, say,
You probably just copy
and now you can drag it on,
so if you copy that sheet, just copy that up.
get the
whole
yeah,
Excel
and drag it out over
Just
there.
reuse the file.
So if you grab a few of
I
these,
already have a
three,
file that has
grab
been
them three, and just move that into
or
there.
something. How would I do
I guess you'd have to go to
So
developer,
if you run
start
that
Visual
now,
Basic,
it's not
and
going to
then
do it,
copy
right?
paste
So if
that
you
function
actually code,
unless Steve knows a way to
the only thing
reference
you should have to change
to other
now
books.
is that
A
the
module.
extent of that
They
high.
just save that module and then just
Which
load it
is-
to a
I
template,
think I think so.
or you have the module.
doesn't matter.
If
If
you
it's
use
one
your
extra.
file,
to
actually, because it's
Excel.
going to try and read and do stuff with numbers.
Yeah, Steve,
So 18, yeah. So 19.
code, just with the button that he's loaded in at the top,
Yeah.
just gotta load it in.
So now if I go,
That's good advice for me, I guess. I just want a way of
So
referencing
that's-
to one
that's
file,
where-
right, my functions.
That's where like training code is really good. That if you wanted to extend that, all you've got to do is change one number. So you don't have to change shit everywhere. That's why variables is
that work
because if you
that
write, instead of writing I, so you go to 18, and then you did that again.
or you need to be able to load
Yeah.
that module into the framework.
If you just call it
So you do
I,
that.
Yeah.
So
it
it
always goes back to that
go
join.
back to that one thing.
Just
How you
Isn't that easy to do?
That's the
Just
cool
loading
thing.
that module?
Sorry.
Well, that's easy to do, right?
I don't know.
Loading a
What's
module, or how easy is it to load an existing module?
I've never actually done it. Let's try it.
If you just wanted to create a module that had all these new functions that you're
Yeah.
defining.
And you want to
Yes.
load it to a new one.
Yeah, if you want to deploy it into a new workbook, export.
I think you need to know what's going on in the code, because if you load this in, we've defined columns
Yes.
A, B, C, D is hard coded in.
That's why I asked if you could name
Yeah, if you,
cells,
yeah,
and then if I name them and I know what name that has,
yeah,
I can just
you can just rename them, load it in, and then it will work.
Yeah.
That's fine.
It's very risky though, because
Yeah.
like in your code, you've literally said that column A is a diameter.
This
If
is
you put anything else in column A, it's wrong.
this is what so that's
Mm.
as you get better, you'll learn ways to make things kind of just work anywhere, I guess. So that's what I was saying to Umar. He just sort of goes, oh, I want to extend my table. So he dragged down a few more cells. He's like, is that going to work? Runs it. Not going to work for those last three that he extended. But what does he have to change? The extent of I. That's it. Just that one number. Because every time he's gone and wanted to talk about what row he's in, he's referred it to this one value. So you just got to change that one value. It's kind of where it's the cool thing. As you get better, you'll start to realize how you can make things so efficient that all you have to change is tiny little tweaks or whatever. So
in that case, and that's why I asked, you can name a table. So then
you
when
can
get
name
the
a table, yeah.
then you don't need to change anything on the code. You're
Yeah.
just referencing a table named.
Yeah, and you could have that in a different workbook. And as
Yeah.
long as it lives in that same place and you don't move it from that directory.
No, it's named. So when it's named, it's calling it wherever it is.
Yeah.
So you don't have to change anything. I
What
named
he's
the
saying,
table.
So what he's saying is like, he's got the same table and different worksheet, but he's just gonna go in and just name it the same.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm gonna name it table Sergio.
As long
So
as-
it doesn't
and-
matter if it's in A1 or in
Yeah.
D5.
Yeah.
Because it's looking for the name.
Yeah, and if you had that table down over there, the indexes would be different, but instead you would access, instead of just calling it I, you'd drill down into the table
itself and say column 1 of the table.
Yeah.
So then you could just move that table wherever you want and it'll keep working.
Don't you mean
Exactly
a
the same.
separate workbook? Like in a completely new Excel? Oh, the same.
So if I
The table have to be the same size as well.
No. That's what I'm trying to say.
yeah, so then in the range you would then say for I equals table max rows minus table start row or something like that. So the I changes with the size of the table. Does that make sense? So you'd say table.count rows or whatever they call it, rows.count, and it'll return the I value for you. You say this is what my I is equal to. So it doesn't matter if you resize that table. But you need to define it as a pivot table or whatever they call it, and then give it a name in that same way that we gave the cells a name. And then, so if we open a new workbook and go here and see if we can import a file, module 1, yeah, so it's in there. It's not going to work because we haven't put that, haven't given it values.
But you have all your functions like that. And then it doesn't.
You just have to define some functions and then
True, false.
Yeah.
Ah, yes.
Boolean.
Yeah, a boolean or a bool. Just give it the same stuff. I think that's the right setup. There you go.
Complete beam AS600 2009 2018. Then you can go back and this is how it was done.
There you go. So that I just added them and that worked.
And now if you write off to the side, if you write equals calculate area,
Oh yeah, so you can just access those.
you'll access the functions. That
Yeah. So if you'd rather,
That's what I wanted.
if you'd rather just not use code, you can write your own custom functions to do.
Equals FIMS, comma, B, D, S.
So that's another thing. I don't know if you anyone was saying how you can name the cells
Yeah, I've dropped it.
in there. Yeah. So if you got to punch in like some capacity equation, you can type in phi PHI times this times that, and it just makes your formulas look a whole lot nicer.
When you click on the file, it will tell you which cell it's looking at.
Yeah.
Instead of having like 5 times E13, it will be 5 times 5.
So if you're looking at someone else's Excel sheet, some other engineers, you click on something, and then this huge formula, you're like looking at all these extra numbers.
All the color blocks.
Yeah, exactly.
Colors.
Oh,
And now
it's like a-
You should have like a library of functions and then share it in the office.
Yeah, could do. Not a bad idea, actually. Well, yeah, Jono walked over his desk 2 days ago or something, and he had a huge kind of was looking like that forecasting one, like just massive, and it was all just for calculating wall capacities, concrete wall capacities. I haven't actually done those calcs myself, but I think I've heard enough people bitch about them that the new code's not real fun. So yeah, he was trying to write something that would make it super quick.
Cool. I'd assume that we don't have anyone at the other end anymore.
I don't think we lost it. I think as well, like, don't be too off put. Like, I know I think still happens now, I don't know when to put dots, when to use brackets and things like that. Instead of something
In
that
here.
you just, like, you don't know, like WS dot range, why is it not WS bracket range? Like, things like that, which you just sort of pick up over time. Just Google it. Just Google how do I refer to a worksheet or something like that, and it'll give you the syntax. Is there a better way to find syntax other than Google?
Yeah, Stack Overflow.
Yeah.
But you can go to the documentation, really. That's where everyone should be going, but people are lazy and seem to just go straight to some other website where someone will give them the answer.
Yeah.
It's human nature, I think. If you're, say here, worksheet's a variable that we've defined up here. So each variable, because it knows it's of type worksheet inherits all these properties that have been defined earlier when they make the language. And if you want to call one of these functions or extensions that are relevant to the worksheet type. Because we've told it it's a worksheet, it'll have a bunch of things available to use on worksheet. So it knows that a worksheet should have a range property because you want to grab things from the sheet. So if you type that and then dot is the extensions of a variable. So if you did a double, it would probably offer you a bunch of different things, a fair bit of overlap, a lot of overlap. But then when you say range, you can't just say range because what range are you giving it, right? It's range has inputs. You need to give it an input. So when you type range, you'll see it'll do that thing. It'll pop up and say, what cell do you want? These can be a bit confusing to people because it's kind of, you can define that in different ways, but you know range needs to have something. So that's why it's got params and you give it a range. Defined as a string or whatever. And then a range has a bunch of properties and one being value. There's all sorts of shit there I haven't used. Most of them I haven't used. Clear. So you could empty the range. So we could write another little sub and make another button. And we could say for I equals 2 to 15, ws.range d and I dot clear, right? So then we could go clear, rewrite, clear root, and it'll just clear it out. Sort of thing.
Your else if instead of having a message box could actually clear the cell next to every one.
Yeah.
Instead of
leaving it empty. Yeah, definitely. Yep. Yeah, it's a good point. So I'll leave that there. So down here, Steiner's saying instead of doing that, you could you grab that and clear it out. So say we had UMA. If we kept running this over and over at the moment, it's going to leave that value next to UMA.
That's the value that it was last time.
Yeah, and it shouldn't, UMA shouldn't be equal to 9.42, should he? So you can grab that same range. Yeah, so range and cells, very similar, same sort of thing. And then you could go dot clear. So cells might not have clear. No, it does. That's one of those things where I've sort of used them interchangeably and found that they don't have things that the others do. There you go. Yeah, much nicer. That's it.
How many nested loops have we done? Is that like
done a few. Probably when I was not as good, you kind of, I think if you find yourself doing loops and loops and loops, then you probably need to have a think about your structure and think, yeah, probably a much cleaner way to do it. Came across Tim Corey, and he does C# tutorials, and this was only a month ago, 2 months ago that I came across his stuff, and I sat down and watched a few of them, and they just go for like an hour long. And I reckon like my coding just became twice as good in the space of watching a few of his videos. And I was just kind of furious that I didn't actually go and watch a few videos like this earlier, because I've just been, the way I would write is just, still works, but it's just a bit messier. If someone else had to read it that was a pro, they would look and go, you absolute noob, this is really difficult to navigate. Yeah, so I just learned how to use classes more efficiently, which is like yeah, when I'm trying to explain classes, we're just breaking your code up. It's kind of into modules, so your modules can cross over and get stuff from each other. So you would make this module and, I don't know, call it helper functions, or you could call it bending functions if you were doing bending checks. Then you could have another one called shear functions, or AutoCAD functions, or Revit even more particular, and then something, whatever other programs you guys use. So yeah, so it's really good to, again, that's why I kind of went for making these things separate. You could just put these one-liners straight in, and it'd be really good, but it's kind of nice that each
subroutine or function should have one purpose. It just helps things stay really clear. Yeah, so it's probably like a bit overwhelming, all that. I was only meant to go for 2 hours, now like 3.5 hours.
You have a question, ask Steve.
Yeah, we've recorded it, bud. If you want to, if you go through it again, I don't know if anyone would, but I guarantee you'll be following it twice as easy, 4 times as easy, because you've now sort of been through the pain. As you go through, you'll remember half of those easy things and just focus on the stuff that you didn't quite get.
Very good.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
David?